Welcome to a space of calm where ancient Zen stories return like soft winds through the quiet night. Here we don't speak of gaining more, achieving more, or chasing after anything. We learn the art of releasing to live more deeply, more truthfully, and more peacefully. Have you ever noticed that the more we try to gain, the emptier we feel? The more we try to fill ourselves, the more exhausted the heart becomes. We often believe happiness comes from having more wealth, more love, more chances. But through the lens of the Dharma, happiness is not about having more, but about needing less craving, less control, less desire to prove something to the world. The Buddha taught when we stop demanding peace arrives. When we stop seeking, happiness is already here. Happiness is not a reward at the end of the road, but a state of mind that appears when we pause in the middle of the journey. Someone once asked, if we let go of everything, what will be left to live for? It sounds paradoxical, yet that is the essence of the way. When we let go, we lose nothing. We simply return to ourselves. Only when the heart is empty can life truly flow in. Each Zen story you are about to hear is not a dry sermon, but a small mirror reflecting the mind. Every tale will gently guide you from tension to stillness, from attachment to release, from sorrow to deep sleep, where the mind rests and the body heals. Let each word fall like a drop of water on the lake of your mind, calming every ripple within you. Listen not to analyze, but to feel. Because sometimes happiness is as simple as this, to live less but deeper. And now, if you are ready, let us begin with the first story, the crystal jar and the last drop of water. In an ancient temple by the mountainside, a Zen master kept a crystal jar filled with rainwater. One day, his young disciple accidentally knocked it over. Morning mist covered the stone path to the temple. The wind carried the scent of damp earth and the faint echo of an early bell stretching through the air like the breath of the universe. Amid this stillness, one question often returns to both monks and lay people alike. Why are we so afraid of loss? A scratch on an object, a person walking away, a word not spoken as we wished, and the mind begins to tremble. We rush to fix, to hold on, to make things as they were. But the harder we try, the deeper we ache. The tighter we grasp, the more we fear. It's like trying to hold water in your hand. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Perhaps happiness is not in holding on, but in allowing things to pass through. Like moonlight, we can only see it when we lift our eyes, never by clutching it in our hands. In the Buddha's teaching, all phenomena are impermanent. Every form is born already carrying the seed of decay. Yet because we fail to see this truth, every time something disappears, it feels as though the world collapses. And so, one small story unfolded in an old temple during a rainy season, where an old Zen master taught his student the lesson of letting go through nothing more than a crystal jar and a single drop of water. The temple leaned against the mountains, facing a valley of young rice fields waving like green waves. Each morning the clouds drifted by, resting on the moss-covered roof, like a veil of mist, making the temple look as if it were floating inside a dream. On a wooden table under the veranda stood a crystal jar, clear as light, holding rainwater from the first storm of the season, the purest water the sky could offer. The jar had been there for years. No one knew who first brought it. Every dawn, the master used its water to make tea, offer it to the Buddha, and share it with the monks. To him, it was not routine. It was mindfulness in ritual, where every drop of water and every breath of tea carried awareness and gratitude. One morning, dew still clung to the bamboo leaves and birds sang softly in the mist. The young novice stepped onto the veranda, nervous inside. Yesterday, the master had said, "That jar is as fragile as your own mind. Guard it with full awareness." The boy gently lifted the jar, wiping off the beads of dew. Sunlight passed through the glass, scattering a soft glow across his young face. Then, in an instant, his wet hand slipped. A faint, almost inaudible crack rang through the air. A thin fracture hairline and delicate stretched along the jar's surface. Water began to leak, one drop then another, falling onto the wooden floor, blending into the mist, disappearing without a trace. The boy froze. His face turned pale, hands trembling. Fear rose. Fear of being scolded, of doing something irreversible, of losing something sacred. He knelt, trying to cup the leaking drops with his hands, but the more he tried, the faster they slipped away. The Zen master stepped out. His robe brushed lightly against the stone, his face calm as a still pond. He looked at the jar, then at his disciple. No anger, no blame, only a gentle voice like wind over grass. "This jar broke long ago. You just noticed it today?" The boy looked up stunned. "But, Master, it's still here. It's only cracked." The master turned toward the courtyard, where white clouds were dissolving in the sunlight, and said softly, "Everything born carries an unseen crack from the very beginning. Nothing remains whole forever. The jar will break, the body will fade. All that we love will change. One who sees this truth no longer fears loss." He lifted the jar and placed it back on the table. Water kept dripping quietly, soaking into the wood. His voice was low but deep. "These drops haven't disappeared. They're continuing their journey into the earth, into the sky, to become rain once more. Nothing ever truly vanishes. It only takes a new form." The boy's tears fell not from fear, but from release. Something within him softened, as if an invisible weight had lifted. Amid the sorrow, a new understanding bloomed, that letting go is not losing, but returning. A breeze passed through the veranda, touching the crack in the jar. It sang a clear bell-like sound. The master smiled. "Do you see, even in its breaking, it still sings?" In that moment, sunlight pierced through the clouds, glimmering on the cracked glass like a clear tear. And in that delicate resonance, the listener's heart fell silent, realizing that what is broken is not gone, but simply a way for light to enter. This story of a jar, a drop, and a crack holds the entire essence of impermanence and release. When the master said, "The jar has already broken," he wasn't speaking of time. He was revealing the nature of all things born: exist, change, dissolve. To see this not as theory, but through wisdom, is to end our suffering over loss. In psychology, this is called radical acceptance, not surrendering in defeat, but freeing the energy trapped in resistance. When we stop fighting, reality life becomes lighter. Pain is not in losing, but in believing we shouldn't have lost. If we know a jar will someday break, we'll use it with gratitude, not fear. If we know those we love are part of impermanence, we'll love them with compassion, not attachment. In meditation, peace doesn't come from forcing stillness, but from seeing the movement clearly. When we see things as they are, we're no longer pulled by emotion. From this story, we learn happiness doesn't come from control. Peace comes only from understanding that nothing truly belongs to us. Letting go is not indifference. Letting go is to love without clinging, to live without grasping. Look around you, your home, your belongings, your memories. How many of them bring peace, and how many only make you fear their loss? Modern science confirms this. The more we cling to possessions or self-image, the more the brain activates its threat response, keeping us in anxiety. When we practice letting go, that area of the brain quiets, cortisol levels drop, and even our heartbeat and breath begin to slow. So letting go isn't just a spiritual act, it's biological healing. At night before sleep, imagine a crystal jar inside your heart. Throughout the day, you've poured emotions into it: anger, joy, worry, regret, fear. Now, simply place the jar down. Don't try to keep the water from spilling. Let it flow out back into the earth. Breathe in deeply. Exhale slowly. Each breath is a drop of water falling, dissolving. Each exhale a release. Feel your body grow lighter, your mind quieter, like the sound of a bell fading in the sky. When you understand that the jar is already broken, you no longer need to fix it. You simply sit still, watching moonlight reflect on the broken pieces, seeing that they too shine, just like life itself. The jar may be broken, but the water isn't gone. It seeps into the soil, rises as mist, and falls again as rain. Likewise, what we think is lost often waits to be reborn in another form. Just like the story of a farmer named Shiro, who gathered all his fears into his granary, only for a fire one night to burn it all to ashes. Yet from that very ash spring was born again. On the mountainside where the ancient temple stood still in the morning mist, wild flowers continued to bloom quietly along the narrow path. After long months of steady rain, the earth had softened again, its damp scent rising rich and full. Amid that stillness, something seemed to whisper a familiar paradox. Human beings fear loss so deeply that they end up losing their own peace. We hold on to wealth because we fear poverty. We cling to loved ones because we fear loneliness. We cling to reputation because we fear being forgotten. Yet the more we hold, the more we fear, and the more we fear, the more we lose the most precious thing of all, trust in the natural flow of life. In earlier stories, we spoke about the crystal jar, how when it breaks, it simply returns to its impermanent nature. But what happens when we lose something we believe we cannot live without? When our very source of life disappears overnight, can we still believe that life can sprout again from ashes? The next story is about a farmer, a man who spent his whole life saving every grain of rice, so consumed by fear that he never realized it was fear itself that kept him from truly living. At the foot of a misty mountain lay a small village, peaceful amid vast rice fields. In that village lived a quiet farmer with his wife and children. His life was bound to the earth, to the rice, to the uncertain rhythm of sun and rain, the very breath of the sky. But deep inside he carried a constant fear, fear of a bad harvest, fear of hunger, fear that all his work could vanish with a single strange wind. He worked harder than anyone. When others rested, he planted. When others ate, he harvested. He stored every bag of rice in his granary, locking the door tight as if it held the soul of his entire life. Each night, he walked through the granary with a lantern, counting every sack, touching every wall, afraid that a rat might chew through the grain, or that someone might steal what he had traded his blood and sweat for. The villagers called him the richest man in the region. But anyone who looked into his eyes knew he was far from peaceful. In that gaze always lived a deep unrest, the look of a man standing at the edge of a cliff, terrified that even the lightest breeze might take everything away. Then one winter night, a gust of wind swept down from the forest. A spark from a neighbor's fire was carried through the air and landed on the roof of his granary. In moments, flames shot high, devouring everything inside. By the time people rushed to help, the blaze roared like a sea of fire. The farmer stood frozen, trembling, watching his life's work turn to ash. His scream tore through the night, raw and broken. By morning, only thick black ash covered the ground. He sat there for hours. No one dared to approach. The light in his eyes had gone out, replaced by a vast emptiness of loss. From that day, he neither ate nor slept. He only stared at the ashes, as if staring into his own burnt heart. Time passed quietly. Spring rain returned, softening the earth. Ashes from the granary washed into the soil. Then one morning, his son ran in, shouting joyfully, "Father, the rice is growing." The farmer thought it was a mistake. But when he stepped outside, he stopped in disbelief. In the very spot that had been black with fire, tiny green shoots were rising, fragile, yet full of life. Light rain fell, ashes still clinging to the leaves, and within the damp earth, life had begun again. He knelt and touched the young sprouts. Tears mixed with the rain, warm, salty, alive. In that moment, something inside him cracked open. Fear dissolved, leaving only stillness. He realized that some losses don't come to punish, but to free. When we hold on too tightly, life itself finds a way to open our hands through fire, through wind, or simply through time. That year, the rice fields turned golden. But the real miracle wasn't in the harvest. It was in the farmer's eyes. Where once there had been deep anxiety, now reflected a rare peace. Still as a pond after rain, where everything had settled, leaving only one simple truth: gratitude for being able to breathe in this very moment. To the worldly eye, this story might look like tragedy, but through wisdom, it is transformation. That farmer is each of us, always trying to accumulate, to control, to feel safe through possession. Yet the more we hold, the more we suffer, because fear is born from craving. In the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha taught, "One who lives in fear has not yet understood impermanence. The fear of loss is a direct result of attachment. When we call things mine, my land, my money, my people, my name, we build a wall of fear around them. The more we protect, the more we are bound." The fire in this story is not just literal flame, it symbolizes the burning away of attachment. Sometimes what we call disaster is actually the hand of awakening. In meditation, we learn that only when we release fear can the energy of life flow freely again. Like a river blocked by the dam of anxiety, the water stagnates and rots. Only when the barrier opens does the stream return to clarity. From the farmer's story, we see clearly happiness does not come from holding on, but from trusting the flow. In life, each of us will experience our own night. When the granary burned, a broken relationship, a lost job, a shattered faith. But sometimes it is precisely within those ashes that we discover new ground for the heart to grow. Modern psychology calls this post-traumatic growth, transformation after suffering. Those who face loss with acceptance and surrender often emerge deeper and wiser. Like the farmer, they no longer fear loss because they see that loss is simply another form of rebirth. In daily life, we can practice this in simple ways. When something doesn't go as planned, pause and ask, am I truly losing, or am I being taught to let go? When anxiety arises, remind yourself, life keeps flowing. I don't need to stop it. When in pain, breathe deeply slowly and visualize the pain as a seed. Today's ashes may become tomorrow's spring soil when we live with trust, not blind faith, but faith in cause and effect. Our hearts become lighter. What must come will come. What must go will go. Each night before sleep, try this small meditation. Close your eyes and imagine a granary within your heart, a place where you store everything you fear: losing money, love, reputation, the past, future plans. Now imagine a gentle flame, not a fire of destruction, but of illumination. Let it move through the granary, burning away the sacks of worry, attachment, and control. You see ashes, but you are not afraid because you know new life will grow from them. Inhale, feel the warmth of life. Exhale, release what no longer serves you. Inhale, give thanks for what once was. Exhale, allow it to return to the universal flow. In this way, each breath becomes a stream of water, nourishing the field of your heart. And sleep comes not to make you forget, but to help you renew. When the farmer realized that the last grain of rice was not truly lost but had returned to the earth to sprout anew, he stepped out of fear. Likewise, when we trust in life's cycles, we stop hoarding happiness and begin to live fully in each present moment. And from here, we move into the next lesson about the simplicity and freedom of one who knows contentment. A Zen master was once given a fine silk robe, yet he chose to keep wearing his old tattered one. When asked why, he simply smiled and said, "This old robe reminds me I have nothing left to show off." That story is called The Tattered Robe of Master Etsu. At dawn, mist still covered the bamboo grove surrounding the temple. The sound of a distant bell echoed gently through the silence, spreading like the breath of the earth itself. The pond in front of the courtyard reflected the last trace of moonlight before sunrise. Everything was simple, and strangely, it was that very simplicity that made the heart feel full. We often believe happiness lies in adding more. More wealth, more love, more success, more praise. But the more we add, the heavier the heart becomes. We buy more to feel complete, only to feel crowded. We decorate ourselves to be noticed, yet lose the naturalness we were born with. Have you ever wondered, perhaps true peace doesn't come from what we possess, but from our ability to live lightly, to live less, but deeper. In the teachings, the Buddha once said, "One who knows contentment is the richest person of all." It sounds simple, but in any age, it remains one of the hardest lessons to learn, because the body's sense of enough is not the same as the mind's. The body only needs food and clothing, But the mind demands recognition, superiority, and respect. The hunger of the body is easy to feed, but the hunger of the mind, if not illuminated by wisdom, will never feel full. The next story took place in a small Zen monastery deep in the mountains. There lived an old master who had spent many years in silence and simplicity. And it was he, through an old tattered robe, who taught his disciple the meaning of true freedom, the kind that exists only when the mind is no longer bound by material things. That winter cold winds from the high peaks swept down, whistling through the pines and seeping through the cracks of the temple doors. Snow lay thick on the roof tiles, white as ashes fallen from the sky. In the small kitchen, a weak flame flickered, mingling the smoke of green tea with the scent of burned wood, a fragile warmth within the stillness. The disciples worried about their master, who still wore his old cloth robe frayed at the shoulders, faded by many winters past. One morning, while the wind still bit the air, a young disciple asked permission to return home to visit his parents. A few days later, he came back carrying a carefully wrapped bundle. Inside was a fine silk robe, deep brown in color light, as mist and soft as clouds. He knelt and offered it to his master, speaking with devotion. "Master, the winter is too cold. Your robe is torn. Please accept this one so you may stay warm." The master looked at the robe, his kind eyes reflecting the faint glow of the oil lamp. His hand brushed over the smooth fabric, the silk threads shimmering like the breath of spring not yet arrived. He stayed silent for a long while, then gently folded the robe and set it aside, continuing to wear his old one as usual. Days passed. The young disciple could no longer contain his curiosity. He approached and bowed. "Master, why don't you wear the new robe? It's so much warmer." The master smiled a quiet, gentle smile. "This robe would warm my body, but the old one reminds me I have nothing left to show off." The room fell silent. The wind outside stirred the curtain. The soft sound of snow melting disappeared into stillness. That night, when everyone was asleep, the young disciple quietly stepped out to the veranda. The moonlight poured over the roof like milk. He saw his master sitting by the lamp, sewing the torn edge of his robe. Each stitch glimmered in the pale light, and the quiet was so deep that he could hear the wind moving through the chimney. In that moment, he understood some people choose simplicity, not because they lack, but because they are already full. The next morning, snow still fell. The master stepped into the courtyard, his old robe fluttering in the cold wind, its shoulders still touched by traces of moonlight from the night before. He picked up a dry branch and began sweeping snow from the stone steps. Each motion was slow, steady, and calm, a meditation in action, wordless and complete. A nearby disciple, unable to hide his curiosity, asked, "Master is wearing a torn robe, a form of ascetic practice." The master paused, looked up at the gray sky where snow continued to fall, and smiled lightly. "No, I am not suffering. I just don't want to be tied by silk." His words drifted into the air, simple yet profound. As he walked away, his footprints marked the soft snow, slow, even, and peaceful. The old robe fluttered behind him, not warm, but utterly free. And in that moment, The young disciple realized some things don't need to be new to be beautiful, nor grand to bring warmth. As long as the heart is free from attachment, every winter becomes gentle. This seemingly simple story opens a deep door into the nature of inner freedom. The silk robe is not bad nor wrong, but when we need it to feel superior, it becomes a chain. The old robe did not make the master poor, for his mind needed nothing external to affirm his worth. And the torn robe to a monk is a symbol of letting go of contentment, of a heart that no longer needs to prove anything. In daily life, each of us wears our own robes: the robe of status, the robe of beauty, the robe of wealth, the robe of knowledge, the robe of social role. The more layers we wear, the more afraid we are of being seen bare. But only when we dare to take them off do we truly feel light. In Buddhist teaching, this is the state of non-self, when I is no longer identified with what I have, when the mind is no longer ruled by possessions. True freedom begins. Modern psychology teaches the same. Studies on material detachment show that people who reduce their need for ownership often have higher happiness levels, lower stress, and greater empathy because they no longer use possessions to fill emotional voids. Zen teaches us to live amidst material things without being ruled by them, like a lotus growing in mud yet unstained by it. The master's torn robe is the embodiment of richness through simplicity. In today's world, we see countless silk robes that occupy our minds. We crave more money for safety, more achievements for recognition, more comforts to feel happy. Yet the more we have, the less we feel complete. Happiness doesn't come from gaining more, but from knowing when to stop. To stop is not weakness, it is profound wisdom. When we can say, "That's enough," that's when we truly begin to live. When we can smile at a tear in the fabric, we finally see that life needs no embellishment. It is already perfect in each breath. Research on minimalist living has found that when people reduce their possessions, the brain becomes calmer. Fewer choices mean less distraction, and mindfulness increases. It's not about abandoning all belongings, it's about knowing what to keep and having the courage to let go of what's unnecessary. A content person is not one who has nothing, but one who feels no lack within. You can begin practicing this in simple ways. Each time you want to buy something, ask, "Do I truly need this, or do I just want to feel enough?" Each time you look in the mirror, look beyond clothes and face and see the person who can smile with just a breath. Each time you feel envy or comparison, remember the one in silk will also wear out, and the one in rags can still be warm if the heart holds its own fire. Before sleep, let your mind take off the robes of the day, the robe of worry, of work, of responsibility, of competition. Inhale deeply. Feel that you are here needing nothing to prove your worth. Exhale slowly. Let the tired layers dissolve. In that stillness, imagine yourself wearing a robe of pure simplicity, light as mist, soft as wind. No fabric, no labels, just presence. That is when meditation truly begins, not when we strive to become someone or gain something, but when we simply sit and feel the quiet nature of our own mind. Gradually, the breath slows. The body softens into lightness. Sleep comes like a lotus, closing its petals at dusk, needing no lullaby, no adornment, for simplicity itself is the gentlest song. After the old master's torn robe, people came to understand simplicity does not take happiness away, it purifies it. And then came the next lesson, born from an ordinary meal when the temple cook accidentally forgot to add salt to the rice. Everyone complained except the Zen master, who sat quietly smiling. He said, "When you can eat with gratitude, the taste of salt no longer matters." That story is called Some the Meal Without Salt. Early morning in the monastery, dew still clung to the blades of grass, and the echo of the first bell had just faded. Everything was so still, you could almost hear the earth breathing. That silence revealed a simple truth. Some things only exist when we stop searching for them. Happiness is one of those things. It doesn't lie in what we add to our lives, but in how we receive what's already here. How many times in your life have you felt disappointed just because something didn't go your way? A meal missing its flavor. A person not behaving as you hoped. A day that didn't unfold as planned. We think these small things are mere inconveniences, but they reveal something deeper that our minds have grown used to demanding. If something's missing, life feels dull. If someone doesn't please us, our hearts stir with unrest. Yet the Buddha once taught, when gratitude is present, everything becomes enough. Joy doesn't vanish because the salt is missing. It disappears because the heart is too salted with resentment. In the ancient city of Kyoto that summer, carried the warmth of lotus scent and fresh tea leaves. In the temple courtyard, the lotus flowers had just begun to bloom, reflecting their stillness upon the mirror-like pond. The air carried the soft fragrance of wet earth and faint wood smoke from the kitchen, where a young monk named Sako was cooking rice for the community. For Sako, cooking wasn't just a chore, it was a practice. Each grain washed, each flame tended was a breath of mindfulness. The cook in a monastery must not taste the food, must not rush, and above all, must not let the mind wander. In every pot of rice there must be gratitude for the soil, the rain, the sun, and the hands that planted the seeds. That morning, as Sako prepared the noon meal, his thoughts drifted toward the Dharma talk the abbot would soon give. Lost in thought, he forgot one small thing to add salt to the rice. When the bell rang for lunch, the monks lined up quietly in the dining hall. They ate in silence, every movement guided by breath. But moments later, whispers began to break the stillness. The rice is so bland, it has no taste at all. Someone sighed softly. How could he forget something so simple? Only the Zen master at the head of the table said nothing. He ate slowly, spoon by spoon, his gaze serene, as though he were savoring the finest meal in the world. The rice was plain, yet he finished every grain, showing neither disapproval nor complaint. After the meal, Sako approached, knelt, and bowed deeply. "Master, I made a mistake. I forgot to add salt." The master looked at him with eyes calm and kind, still as a quiet lake. "It's all right. When we eat with gratitude, the taste of salt no longer matters." The words were as soft as wind passing through bamboo, yet they pierced the heart. Sako bowed in silence, but guilt lingered in his chest. He returned to the kitchen and looked at the leftover rice cooling on the stove. Scooping a spoonful, he tasted it utterly bland. He sighed. Then his teacher's voice echoed in his mind. When we eat with gratitude, he closed his eyes, inhaled deeply, and took another bite, this time not to taste, but to truly feel. He noticed the gentle warmth on his tongue, the faint scent of smoke from the dry wood, and the pure fragrance of the grain itself. And something shifted. He could suddenly taste the natural sweetness of the rice, the flavor of earth, of rain, of the farmer's labor. It was only when the rice had no salt that he finally tasted the essence of rice. That afternoon, sunlight spilled over the lotus pond, sparkling like salt dissolved in water. Sako sat alone on the veranda, a cup of tea in hand. He understood now the lesson his teacher never needed to explain. Sometimes it is absence that makes life feel whole. Sometimes when the seasoning is gone, we finally taste the original flavor of existence. This simple story holds a profound teaching about gratitude and unconditional acceptance. Meditation is not just sitting still with eyes closed. It is seeing life as it unfolds in the most ordinary moments. When rice has salt, we taste only salt. When rice is bland, we finally have the chance to taste the grain itself, the root of the meal. Likewise, in life, when things go well, we chase the flavor of success. Only in moments of lack do we recognize what truly matters. In Buddhist teaching, this is called awareness. The ability to recognize the value of the present moment no matter the circumstances. Happiness doesn't depend on conditions. It depends on the attitude of the heart. If while eating we think only of what's missing, then even 1,000 dishes will never feel enough. But if we eat with gratitude, grateful that we have rice, someone who cooked it, a body that can digest it, and peace enough to sit still, then even a plain meal becomes a meditation. This is mindful eating. Eating to nourish both body and mind, not merely to satisfy taste. When gratitude fills the heart, every bite becomes a prayer of thanks to the universe. Modern psychology agrees. Studies on the why gratitude effect show that spending just 2 minutes each day listing 3 things we're thankful for significantly increases happiness and emotional stability. The reason is simple. When the mind focuses on what is enough, the brain stops obsessing over what is missing. And once we stop demanding, positive energy begins to flow. The meal without salt is a metaphor for countless situations in life. When work doesn't go as planned, when loved ones don't understand us, when a day unfolds differently than we hoped, those are all bland meals. Most of our suffering doesn't come because life is cruel, but because we forget to be grateful. We forget that if we can still eat it, means we are still alive. We forget that the person who irritates us may also carry unseen pain. We forget that an imperfect day sometimes opens space for rest. When we pause without reacting, without demanding, we see that life is still feeding us grain by grain, breath by breath. Happiness, in truth, is not perfection in the world. It is contentment in the heart. Just like the Zen master who smiled over a tasteless meal because he wasn't eating to chase flavor, he was eating to nourish gratitude. A neuroscientist once said, "When the mind feels gratitude, the brain releases serotonin, the same chemical that brings calm and sleep." This means gratitude isn't just philosophy. It's real medicine for the body and mind. Tonight, before you sleep, don't count what's missing. Remember 3 things you already have. Perhaps your breath is still steady. Perhaps your loved ones sleep peacefully. Perhaps it's just the sound of soft wind outside your window. Let gratitude spread through you like morning tea steam drifting through the temple air. Not strong, just real. Then close your eyes and imagine a simple meal. A bowl of plain white rice, no salt, but with the gentle smile of a Zen master. Feel each breath as a grain of rice within your heart, nourishing life with enoughness. Let sleep come as the master chewed his rice slowly, peacefully, without demand. Because sleep, like happiness, grows distant the more we chase it. Only when we stop demanding both will find us on their own. After the story of the meal without salt, we realize true joy does not come from conditions, it comes from the attitude of the heart. And likewise, on the path of self-discovery, many people chase the light of enlightenment far away, without realizing it's already reflecting within their own minds. The next story is about a young monk, a student who tried to catch his own reflection in the water, hoping to touch the light of the moon. The master only smiled and said, "Don't grasp the reflection. Look up at the moon." That story is called The Shadow and the Moon. On the night of the full moon, the pond before the temple was still as glass. Silver light fell upon the water, shimmering like mist. A gentle breeze passed through the bamboo grove, carrying the breath of the mountains. In that silence, one might wonder, why do people keep searching for enlightenment when the light of awakening has never truly left them? We grow up in the habit of seeking happiness, seeking answers, seeking peace, and sometimes spend our entire lives chasing only our own shadow. We see someone calm and we wish to be like them. We see someone successful and we want what they have. But the more we chase, the more restless the mind becomes, like someone standing beside a pond trying to grasp the reflection of the moon. The more we reach, the more the water clouds. The next story tells of a young monk who spent an entire season of the full moon searching for the light of enlightenment in a place where it never truly was. And with only one sentence from his master, he came to understand what many spend a lifetime seeking. That autumn night, the monastery lay bathed in moonlight. The silence was so deep, one could hear the wind sliding across the roof tiles, the song of insects rising from the distant forest, and the faint ripple of water in the courtyard pond. Beneath the veranda, a young monk named Taro sat alone, his gaze fixed upon the pond, reflecting the full, round moon. The moonlight was so bright it seemed touchable, as if one gentle motion could let him grasp the light of enlightenment he had long been seeking. Taro had practiced diligently for months, meditating, chanting, attending Dharma talks. Yet no matter how calm he grew, something inside him remained veiled a thin mist, a faint distance between him and what he called true awakening. He believed that one day, if he could witness a divine sign, a flash of insight, a sacred vision, he would finally be enlightened. That night, the moon shone perfectly upon the pond. Its round reflection floated beside Taro's own image. He looked down and whispered, "Is this the light of my mind?" He leaned closer and reached toward the water, but at his touch the surface rippled and the moon broke into 1,000 silver fragments. Panicked, he tried to hold the reflection in his hands. The more he grasped, the murkier the water became. The moonlight scattered. "Why did it vanish? I was so close," he murmured, his voice trembling. Tears fell into the pond, mingling with the broken light. A moment later, footsteps approached from behind. Taro turned. It was the abbot, his teacher, who had been quietly observing. He said nothing at first, only gazed at the rippling water, then spoke in a warm, steady tone. "What are you looking for in the water?" "I wish to see the light of enlightenment, master." The teacher lifted his eyes to the sky. The moon, whole and brilliant, still hung above untouched. He smiled gently. "If you keep looking into the pond, you'll only see the reflection. Look up, the real moon is there." Taro raised his head. In that instant, everything fell silent. The moon, radiant, perfect, unbroken, still glowed in the sky, never lost. He stood motionless as a soft wind brushed his face like the universe itself was smiling. After months of searching, he realized the light of awakening had never been elsewhere. It wasn't hidden in miracles or in shimmering waters. It had always been here, shining in the boundless sky of his own mind. That night, Taro sat long in stillness. The wind ceased. The pond grew calm again, and the reflection of the moon returned. Inside him, too, another pond, after years of disturbance, finally became still. He understood only when we stop searching among illusions do we see the true moon that has always been shining within. This story seems simple, yet it holds a deep paradox. The more you chase enlightenment, the farther it drifts. People often believe clarity lies in something grand, a mystical moment, a supernatural experience, or a secret hidden far away. But true awakening is simply seeing what is without the haze of wanting. The moon represents the pure nature of the mind, luminous, still eternal. The water represents the ordinary mind, full of desires, fears, and thoughts. When the water stirs, the moon disappears. When the mind stirs, wisdom is obscured. The master didn't tell Taro to search harder. He said only, "Look up." That was the moment of transformation, from seeking outside to returning within, from grasping forms to perceiving essence. It's like someone who spends life chasing happiness, not realizing it appears only when they stop demanding it, or like one who chases love not knowing it, blooms naturally when the heart opens without force. In Buddhism, this is called directly pointing to the mind, seeing one's true nature. It means awakening does not require rituals or theories, only seeing clearly into one's own heart, which has always been bright. Modern psychology teaches the same truth. The more we try to achieve happiness, the less happy we feel, because the mind operates in comparison and lack. Happiness cannot be owned. It arises when the mind releases grasping and no longer strives to become someone or reach somewhere. In daily life, many are like taro. We chase the light in outer appearances. Someone with status, we think they're enlightened. Someone calm, we think they have a secret. We meditate, read scriptures, study Dharma, yet still suffer because we crave to attain something. But enlightenment is not a new state. It is a return to what already is. The moon needs no polishing, only the clouds must part. In the time, Dhammapada. The Buddha said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness itself is the path." When the mind rests fully in this moment, that is already the path of awakening. When seeking ceases, wisdom naturally shines. You can see this in the smallest moments of life. When you stop judging someone, your heart brightens. When you stop trying to control your breath, softens. When you stop clinging to emotion, sorrow dissolves. Neuroscience confirms this too in a state of mindful presence. Brain activity linked to stress decreases, heart rate steadies, and serotonin levels rise. In other words, when we stop chasing the shadow of happiness, body and mind naturally become happy. Before you sleep tonight, imagine sitting beside a still pond. Moonlight touches the surface soft and clear. Look into the water of your own mind. You may see ripples, worries, memories, unfinished words. Don't push them away. Just observe. Then breathe slowly, deeply. Inhale, you are still here. Exhale, let go of all searching. As the mind quiets, you'll see that the light within you was never lost, only hidden by the waves of thought. You don't need to fall asleep quickly. Simply stop chasing sleep, and it will come on its own, just as the moon appears when clouds drift away. And in that sleep, your mind will cleanse itself like a pond after the wind, calm, clear, without a trace of dust. When Taro realized the moon had never vanished, he understood. Everything we search for outside is only reflection. Enlightenment isn't waiting at the end of the path. It appears the moment we stop running. And likewise, many people today cannot find peace, not because they lack something, but because they cling too tightly to what they fear to lose. The next story is about an old soldier who guarded the temple gate his whole life until he learned to lay down the weapon within his heart. That story is called The Gatekeeper and the Invisible Burden. The night wind drifted down from the mountains, carrying the scent of pine and the dampness of mist. In the small temple halfway up the hill, the wooden bell echoed slowly through the stillness of the third watch, blending with the rustle of leaves, the quiet breathing of the earth. That silence made one wonder. Why can't we sleep even when the world around us is completely still? Many people live this way. Even when the body lies down, the mind refuses to rest. We worry about tomorrow, fear losing what we have, fear being surpassed, fear the world will change before we're ready. And because of that fear, we are never truly at peace. People think restlessness comes from lack, but in truth, it comes from holding on too tightly. Like the old gatekeeper in this ancient tale, a man who gripped his sword all his life, only to realize that the enemy keeping him awake was never outside the walls, but inside his own heart. Long ago, in a moss-covered temple on a mountain slope, there lived an old soldier who guarded the gate. He had once been a renowned warrior, a man who had survived countless battles, watched comrades fall, and heard the clash of blades echo through sleepless nights. When age turned his hair to silver, he sought refuge at the temple, hoping to find peace after a lifetime of smoke and blood. From the day he arrived, he worked faithfully, opening the gates each morning, locking them each evening, never forgetting a single latch. But though he lived among incense and temple bells, one habit he could not release: the sword. The weapon that had once saved his life became a constant companion. He carried it everywhere, even to bed. Each night he slept curled beside the brazier hand, gripping the hilt, eyes fixed on the door, as if an unseen enemy might strike at any moment. The young monks watched him with curiosity. One novice finally asked timidly, "Sir, why do you still keep a sword here? No one wishes you harm." The old soldier fell silent for a moment, then said in a voice rough as wind through stone, "I was betrayed once. When you put down your weapon, that's when you're most vulnerable." The novice said nothing. But the abbot, who had long observed the man, understood. The soldier had left the battlefield, yet the battlefield had not left him. One winter night, the north wind roared through the forest, and snow covered the temple grounds. Passing the gatehouse, the abbot noticed the lamp still burning. He stepped inside quietly. The soldier was asleep, face tense, hand clutched tightly around his sword. The lamplight glinted off the scars on his weathered face, strength mixed with exhaustion. The abbot sat beside him in silence. Then, with emotion gentle as breath, he slowly drew the sword from the man's hand. Something strange happened. The old warrior's shoulders, tense for years, began to relax. The deep furrows on his brow softened. His breathing slowed. For the first time in decades, he slept in peace. The next morning, waking to find the sword gone, panic surged through him. He searched frantically under the pillow, behind the curtain, around the gate. Finally, he found the abbot sitting under the veranda pouring tea. The soldier bowed, voice trembling. "Master, where is my sword?" The abbot smiled, his eyes clear and deep as the morning lake. He pointed toward the sky. "It's still there within your heart. That is the only one you need to keep. You no longer need this blade of steel." The soldier fell silent. He looked down at his hands that had gripped weapons and trembled in storms of arrows, now empty, fragile. A tear slid down his wrinkled cheek, hot as molten iron. That night, for the first time in years, he slept without armor, without sword. The cold wind slipped through the cracks, and snow drifted across the courtyard like a soft white blanket. In the dark, the old soldier smiled, a gentle smile, light as air, like a child finally lulled to sleep. And somewhere within him, the sword he'd carried all his life was finally laid to rest. That old gatekeeper is all of us. Each of us holds an invisible sword, not made of steel, but of fear, vigilance, wounds, and memory. That sword keeps us from letting go, from loving freely, from sleeping deeply. We build walls because we fear being hurt. We grip tightly because we fear losing. We prove ourselves because we fear being overlooked. And so we spend our lives guarding a gate no one intends to cross. Buddhist teaching calls this attachment. Clinging not only to objects but to roles, tried beliefs and pain. The tighter we hold, the greater the suffering. The more we try to feel safe, the less peace we find. In Zen, letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means lowering the weapon of the mind, stopping the fight, dropping the defense, ending the war within. True strength isn't in the one who holds the sword, but in the one who can put it down. The master took the soldier's sword not to steal what he valued, but to return his sleep. As the Buddha once said, letting go is the path to freedom. When there's nothing left to defend, you are truly safe. Modern psychology says the same. When people live too long in a state of hypervigilance, even only in thought, the body releases cortisol continuously. The brain cannot rest, leading to insomnia and exhaustion. Only when the mind allows itself to unclench can the nervous system begin to heal. Letting go, then, is not weakness. It is recovery after the longest battle of all, the battle with oneself. In your life, the sword may look different. It may be a job you're too afraid to leave, though you're exhausted. A relationship that hurts, yet you still cling to. A role, strong, wise, always right, that you fear losing because respect depends on it. But remember, when the mind releases, the body can finally rest. Many people go on vacation, yet their minds still work. Many people meditate, yet still argue in their thoughts. That's because the weapon inside hasn't been set down. Ask yourself, if you had to hold a heavy sword your entire life, could you ever lift anything else? You couldn't hold anyone, comfort anyone, or touch peace itself. The Buddha taught, happiness is not in victory, but in the end of the need to fight. When you no longer need to prove or defend, calmness begins to bloom. And when you can sleep deeply without your sword, that's when the heart has learned to trust again. Neuroscience confirms this. When people practice mental release before sleep, breathing slows, the heartbeat steadies, and the brain shifts into theta waves, the same state experienced by monks in deep meditation. Letting go not only calms the mind, it heals the body. So tonight, before you lie down, notice what you're holding, not with your hands, but with your heart. A memory, a person, a fear, something unfinished. Imagine it as a sword and gently set it down beside you. Take a deep breath in. Exhale slowly. Feel your shoulders soften, your neck. Loosen your eyelids, grow light. There's nothing left to guard. No one to fight. Only breath and stillness surrounding you. If you hear the wind outside, let it be a lullaby. If you see the darkness, let it be the blanket of the universe covering you. In that moment, you are no longer the gatekeeper. You are the one being kept safe. Sleep will come naturally, just as it did when the Zen master quietly removed the sword, and the soldier smiled in his first dream without fear. When he finally let go of the sword, the old warrior found the peace that years of battle could never give. Only when the heart is truly at rest can the body know how to rest. And yet there are some who, even after letting go of everything, still cling to a single lamp, afraid to lose their own light. The next story speaks of a young novice in a winter storm who tried to keep a lamp burning through the night, only to realize that true light does not live in the flame, but in the one who can accept the darkness. That story is called The Oil Lamp in the Snowstorm. In life, everyone has a lamp they try to protect. Some fear losing love, some fear losing their reputation, some fear the day when no one will need them anymore. So they add more oil shield, the flame guard it from the storm, forgetting that it is often the fear of darkness that keeps them from ever knowing what true light really is. We tend to believe that happiness comes from gaining something, a person who understands us, a warm home, a lamp that never goes out. But the Dharma teaches differently. Happiness begins when we no longer need to cling to outer light in order to feel bright within. The story of the novice monk, Riku, during that winter carved this lesson deep into his heart, a lesson about seeing light within the darkness itself. That winter was so cold, even breath turned to frost. Snow fell for weeks, so heavy it covered the stone path leading up the mountain. Inside the temple, everyone huddled close to a small charcoal brazier, listening silently to the wind howling across the tiled roof. Only one person stayed awake, young Riku, sitting alone in the meditation hall, guarding an old oil lamp. The lamp was small, its bronze body cracked, its rim blackened with soot. But it was the only source of light left in the night. Before the snowstorm, the abbot had told him, "Whatever happens, you must keep this lamp from going out." From that moment, Riku treated the flame like a living being. As night fell and the wind howled through the cracks, he wrapped himself in another robe, cupped the lamp in both hands, and shielded it from the gusts. The oil was running low. The smoke stung his eyes, but he stayed there unmoving. The first night passed, then the second. The cold wind never stopped. Snow battered the walls endlessly. Each time the flame wavered, Riku leaned close and breathed gently, keeping it alive. His hands cracked from the cold, his face pale from sleeplessness. Between trembling breaths, he whispered like a prayer, "I must keep it burning. If it goes out, the whole temple will fall into darkness." By the third night, he was nearly exhausted. His eyelids drooped, but his hands still clutched the lamp. When only a few drops of oil remained, he bit his lip to stay awake and poured in the last of it. The light flickered faintly, like the breath of someone about to fade away. At dawn, the snow finally stopped. The abbot entered the hall and saw Riku slumped beside the lamp-lip's purple eyes, half open with fatigue. For 3 nights, he had not moved, keeping his master's instruction to the letter. The abbot walked over, looked at the trembling flame in the morning wind, then without a word bent down and gently blew it out. Riku startled awake, terrified. "Master, why did you do that? I stayed up 3 nights to keep it burning." The abbot rested a warm hand on his shoulder and said softly, "You kept the lamp, but you did not keep your mind. You were afraid of darkness, so you clung to this light. But true light does not come from a lamp. It comes from the one who can sit calmly in the dark without fear." Riku froze. The room was now in total darkness, But as his eyes adjusted, something shifted. The darkness no longer felt frightening. He could see his master sitting there, calm and still, as though the night itself was radiating a gentle glow around him. Outside, snow still fell, wind still moaned through the eaves. But inside Riku's heart, another lamp had been lit, one that needed no oil, no fire, and could never be extinguished. That story isn't only about a lamp. It's about the mind that needs to control light. The mind afraid of loss, afraid to let go. When Riku tried to protect the flame, he believed that if it died, the whole world would fall into darkness. But his master wanted him to understand. Darkness is not the enemy of light. It is the womb from which light is born. In Buddhism, light symbolizes wisdom. Yet true wisdom is not something learned from the outside. It is the radiance that naturally shines from an unafraid, peaceful heart. When the mind is fearless and unbound by appearances, even in the deepest night, one can still see the way. The Buddha taught, in the darkness, one who is mindful carries their own light. On the other hand, if we fear losing external light, our job, our lover, our possessions, our beliefs, we will always live in anxiety. The more we cling, the more we depend. The more we depend, the weaker we become. In Zen, this is called attachment to the lamp. We think we're protecting the light, but in truth, we're imprisoning ourselves in fear. Modern psychology observes the same. When people depend on external conditions to feel safe, the brain's amygdala stays overactive, keeping the body in chronic stress. No matter how bright the outer world, the mind remains dark. Only by releasing control can the nervous system heal, and only then can we see true light, not with the eyes, but with the heart. In life, we are all like that young novice. We cling to something we want to keep shining, a relationship, a reputation, a belief, because we fear that if it fades, we will lose direction. Yet when that lamp finally goes out, we realize darkness doesn't destroy us. It simply teaches us to see differently. True happiness is not in avoiding the dark, but in being able to sit peacefully within it without fear. Because when the mind no longer resists, light arises naturally. Science today affirms this truth. During deep meditation or mindfulness, the brain shifts into alpha and theta waves, states linked to clarity and creativity. In that state, neurons synchronize, creating a steady electromagnetic field. The brain quite literally begins to glow. Just like when Riku stopped guarding the external flame, the real light within him finally turned on. So tonight, instead of searching for a lamp, try turning them all off. Sit quietly in the dark. Breathe deeply. Notice there is nothing to fear here. The light of the room may fade, but the light of breath remains. The light of awareness remains. The light of life itself continues to breathe with you. If your mind feels tangled, if you're worried about tomorrow, just sit still. Place a hand over your chest and feel the heartbeat. That is your eternal oil lamp burning quietly, steadily. You don't need to add more oil. You only need to stop covering it with fear. Let tonight be your practice of releasing the need to keep the light alive. Turn off the lamp. Close your eyes. Allow everything to return to stillness. For the moment, You stop trying to shine, your heart begins to glow on its own. Sleep then becomes more than rest. It becomes deep meditation, where darkness holds you gently and you realize you no longer fear the night, because you are the light. By morning, when the storm has passed, the sky is astonishingly clear. Snow blankets the temple roof and melting drops glitter like 1,000 tiny lamps. Riku steps into the courtyard, his heart light as a cloud. He no longer needs to light a lamp for brightness, now lives in everything in the mist, the snow, and the rhythm of his own breath. Yet, on the path of practice, there is still a deeper lesson. Even when one no longer needs outer light, one often still seeks inner support. Like a pilgrim who has walked his whole life with a staff until one day it breaks. And at that moment, he smiles and says, "Now I can walk on my own." The next story is called The Traveler and the Broken Staff, because only when the support is gone do we finally discover how strong our own legs truly are. That morning, white clouds stretched across the mountain ridge. The small path leading out of the Zen monastery was covered in a thin mist, tiny droplets clinging to the brown robe of the traveler who had just stepped through the temple gate. Beneath his feet was a bamboo staff that had accompanied him through many years of pilgrimage, simple worn but steady, smoothed by countless miles and seasons of sun and rain. Before he left, the abbot had said only one sentence: "The long road is not what you should fear. Only fear forgetting that your own legs are the true vehicle." The monk bowed, gently held the staff, his faithful companion through so many years, and walked into the mist. In life, each of us has a kind of staff, something that helps us stay upright, move forward, and believe we are not alone in this world. Some lean on wealth, some lean on love, some lean on the belief that someone or something will keep them from falling. But have you ever stopped and asked yourself, if that staff breaks, can I still keep walking? Or will I collapse on the road, paralyzed by the fear of having no support? The Buddha taught that all external supports are temporary. Whether in the path of practice or in the path of life, there will come a time when we must walk with our own 2 feet. But sometimes it takes a moment of breaking to realize that truth, like the pilgrim in the story that follows. He had spent nearly his entire life walking nameless roads, wandering from small villages hidden in bamboo forests to far valleys where the mist swallowed the dawn. His belongings were few: a faded cloth bag, a chipped water flask, and his bamboo staff worn thin by years of travel. Yet the staff was more than an object. It was a friend, a witness to every step of his journey. When tired, he leaned on it to rest. When climbing steep slopes, it helped him stay balanced. On lonely nights in the mountains, he spoke to it as though speaking to himself. Over the years, the staff absorbed his sweat, his dust, and his tears. Villagers would say, wherever his staff touched the earth, a prayer was sent to the heavens. That evening, the sunset spread gold across the rocky path. The monk stopped to rest. A strong gust swept through, scattering yellow leaves into the air. He planted the staff to steady himself, but then heard a sharp crack. The bamboo split in two. Half fell to the ground, rolled down the slope, and disappeared among the grass. He froze. In his hand remained only a short broken piece, like a fragment cut from memory. For so many years he had never been without it. Now it was gone, and his heart broke with it. He sat by the roadside. The cold of the earth seeped into his body. The wind brushed his robe, sounding like the sigh of a friend who had just departed. He looked down at his feet, calloused, cracked feet that had carried him across mountains, through storms, across treacherous terrain. And yet today, he doubted those very feet. In the silence, an old question echoed inside him. Without the staff, how will I walk? Without support, how will I continue? Then suddenly he smiled. His laughter drifted through the evening forest light as the wind through the bamboo. Now I can walk on my own. He stood up. The first step was shaky, but his feet held. With every step, he felt the earth beneath him warm, soft, alive. Without the staff, he felt the stones, the wind brushing his robe, the rhythm of his own breath. He walked, not leaning, not clinging, simply feeling the life beneath his soles. Far ahead, the sun sank behind the hills, pouring thin streams of golden light across the valley. The pilgrim kept walking, his figure merging with the stillness of autumn. The old cloth bag swayed gently on his shoulder, and within his chest, another light began to rise. A light not from the sun, but from the moment he released his fear of losing support. The road was still long, but now every step was freedom. And behind him, the only traces left on the earth were footprints, soft, steady, and peaceful, like a final prayer from one who had learned to walk without a staff, without grasping, with only faith in himself. That broken staff was not just an accident. It was a symbol of every false support we cling to. We might call it faith, love, money, or status, but in truth, they are all staffs that help us prop up our inner fears. As long as we depend on what is outside of us, we are not truly free. And when life breaks one of those supports, we suffer not because the staff is gone, but because we forgot that we can still walk on our own. That is the essence of Zen, returning to oneself, seeing clearly that all strength already resides within. The Buddha said, "Be a lamp unto yourself." This saying does not mean to reject the world, but to remind us, do not let your light depend on someone else's lamp. Modern psychology calls this inner autonomy, the ability to stand firm without needing validation, perfect conditions, or external reassurance. Those who achieve this move through life lightly, without fear or judgment. In Zen, when the mind is steady, every path becomes level ground. There are no high mountains, no deep valleys, only the road we walk. And the staff, if it remains, is just a companion. If it's gone, we are still at peace. How many times in life have we panicked when losing our support? A person leaves. A job ends. A dream collapses. We sit down broken as if our own bones have snapped. But if we are still enough, we will hear life whisper, "Stand up. You are strong enough to walk without it." True support does not come from outside. It comes from the heart that knows how to return to observe, to let go. The pilgrim no longer feared the long road, for he had realized that he himself was the path. According to a Stanford Psychology Institute study, those with emotional independence who are not driven by praise, criticism, or the need for others' approval show 30% lower cortisol levels than those who live in dependence. It proves that when the mind is free, the body too finds liberation. Losing support is not the end. It is the invitation to become your truest self, unborrowed, unafraid. When night comes, try leaving all your staffs at the door. Don't carry your worries, your plans, or the people you lean on into sleep. Just sit quietly, take a deep breath, and ask, if tomorrow I had nothing to rely on, could I still keep walking? The answer will come when you feel peace in your breath. That's when you realize your very breath is your greatest support. Now, let your body relax as the pilgrim laid his broken staff by the road. Feel your feet, your calves, your whole body resting on the earth. You no longer need to hold yourself up. The ground is holding you. The sky is breathing with you. You are safe whole in this very moment. Sleep that comes from such stillness is not mere rest for the body, but peace for the soul. When the mind no longer searches for support, the body restores its balance, the heartbeat slows, the breath deepens, and the inner light begins to shine. By morning, as the pilgrim continued his journey, his footsteps left even prints on the damp earth. He had no staff, yet each step was light as air. Those who saw him said it looked as though he were walking on clouds, and far away in a quiet village, an old painter sat before a blank canvas. For 30 years, he had tried to finish a painting of a mountain, yet every stroke felt incomplete. Until one day, he put down his brush and smiled. There is no mountain outside the mind. That story is called The Unfinished Painting of Master Heinen. A tale that reminds us that only by letting go of perfection can we truly touch wholeness. That afternoon, a gentle breeze drifted through the temple veranda, carrying with it the faint fragrance of flowers from the garden behind. On the eastern wall, the golden hue of sunset spread like an unfinished painting. The scene was still and quiet, only the rhythmic sound of a brush moving across paper could be heard, steady and calm, like the breathing of the old painter sitting by the window. He had been painting that mountain for 30 years, a mountain that did not exist in the world outside, but had filled his entire life. For 30 years, he changed the ink, changed the strokes, yet never once felt it was enough. Every time he looked at the painting, he sighed, still not right. Still not how I want it to be. How many times in life have you told yourself, just a little more, just one more effort, then it will be perfect? We don't realize that in chasing perfection, we often abandon the very moment that is alive right now. Everyone has an unfinished painting. It might be a dream not yet realized, a relationship unresolved, or even ourselves never feeling quite good enough. But in the Dharma, the Buddha once said, "No form can contain reality, for reality itself is formless." It means that all outward pursuits, whether for perfection, success, or enlightenment, eventually lead us back inward. Only when we release the desire to finish the painting do we see that it has been complete all along. The story of the painter Heinen is proof of that. Heinen was a renowned artist in his region. People said that when he painted birds, they could almost sing, and when he painted clouds, they seemed so real, one could reach out and touch them. Each of his paintings carried a strange vitality, still yet alive, silent yet moving. But there was one painting he never finished. It was called The Silent Mountain. For 30 years, Heinen sat before the same old canvas, facing a distant range of mountains. Every morning, while the mist still lingered, he would dip his brush into ink and paint each stroke as though speaking to himself. In spring, he painted soft white mist wrapping around the base of the mountain like a silk veil. In summer, he added dark, swirling clouds around the peak. When autumn came, golden leaves covered the slopes, and he brushed each stroke carefully, as if tending to the breath of time itself. Then winter returned, and he thinned his ink, washing the mountain in a veil of pale white. And yet, year after year, the silent mountain never felt complete to him. Though others admired it deeply, Heinen always gazed at it in silence. One day his devoted apprentice asked, "Master, the painting is already so beautiful. Why haven't you stopped?" Heinen smiled faintly and shook his head. "Each time I look at it, something feels missing. The mountain isn't alive enough. The wind hasn't yet learned to breathe. I can still hear the silence in the painting unfinished." By the 30th year, his hair had turned white as frost. His once steady hands now trembled as he held the brush. His eyes blurred, yet his heart still yearned for the mountain. One morning, as the sun rose over the hills, he sat before the canvas again. But this time, instead of painting, he set the brush down. He gazed at the work for a long time and whispered softly, "There is no mountain outside the mind." The apprentice, confused, asked quietly, "Master, what do you mean?" Heinen closed his eyes, his voice gentle as the wind through pine trees. "For 30 years, I painted the mountain out there and forgot the one within. The real mountain isn't on this canvas. As long as my mind was restless, the mountain could never be finished. But when the mind is still, the mountain appears without a single brush stroke." Then he stood, rolled up the painting, and placed it on a wooden shelf by the veranda. From that day on, he no longer picked up the brush each morning. Villagers still saw Heinen sitting by the window, watching clouds drift over the real mountains, his eyes shimmering as if painting an invisible masterpiece. When asked whether he would ever paint again, he only smiled, for in his heart, the silent mountain was already complete, not in ink or color, but in the stillness of his own being. And those who met him afterward would say, "In his eyes there is always a mountain clearer than any painting, more alive than any landscape, serene as a mind that has found itself." Heinen's unfinished painting was more than a work of art. It was a mirror of the human mind on its journey toward wholeness. We are all painters of our own lives. Each day, we add strokes, adjust colors, hoping one day the picture of our life will finally be beautiful enough. But the more we try, the more incomplete it feels. The Buddha taught, "The mind is the artist that paints all worlds. The mountain is not outside, nor is the painting on the canvas. Both arise from the mind. If the mind is unsettled, even the most beautiful scene will feel unfinished. If the mind is still, everything becomes a masterpiece." Zen calls this returning to original awareness, the point where all seeking ceases and we realize there is nothing to attain, nothing to add. Modern psychology describes something similar, the flow state. when one lets go of judgment and striving and simply is present in what one is doing. In that state, the boundaries of time and self dissolve, and creativity flows naturally. So, it was with Heinen. When he still wanted to paint it, right, his mind was bound. But the moment he let go, the painting became complete. We often believe that perfection is a destination, but the Dharma teaches that perfection is a state of mind, not a result. You can cook a meal, tend a plant, or simply breathe. If done with full presence, you are already painting the perfect picture. But if the mind keeps saying, not enough, not right, then no matter how many colors you add, the picture will remain incomplete. Just like life, when we try to arrange everything perfectly, work, people, future, we paint with tension. But when we release the urge to control, we begin to paint with life itself. A study from Harvard University found that people who focus on the present moment rather than worrying about the future or regretting the past report a 47% increase in happiness levels. This shows that happiness does not come from finishing the painting of life, but from living in each stroke of it. So tonight, as you close your eyes, don't think about what you'll paint tomorrow. Look instead at today's canvas. It may not be perfect. There may be smudges or uneven lines, but that is its beauty. Real, alive, and still unfolding. Relax. Breathe in, know that you are breathing in. Breathe out, know that you are breathing out. Each breath is a brush stroke, needing no correction, no polish. In the darkness, you don't need to search for any other light. Your painting continues, drawn by your heartbeat, your breath, and the quiet within. And soon you will realize, even in sleep, the mind remains luminous, painting dreams of peace. When Heinen put down his brush, he did not abandon art. He simply stopped trying to make the mountain more perfect. He had realized that the mountain no longer needed to be painted because it already existed within his still heart, just like in the old temple on the distant hill, where every morning the sound of a bell rings out. No one knows who strikes it. One day, a disciple asked the Zen master, who rings the bell each morning? The master smiled and replied, no one. It is only the wind meeting our listening. And that leads to the next story. The bell that rings without a hand, where we learn that when the mind is still, everything around us becomes a sound of awakening. Early morning in the ancient temple nestled along the mountain slope. The mist was so thick that even the distant forest blurred like an ink-wash painting fading into itself. The world was silent. Only the sound of wind moving through bamboo, the delicate song of the first birds of dawn, and then, as always, the sound of the bell. Deep, resonant, lingering, its tone seemed to pour into every droplet of dew resting on the leaves. The strange thing was, no one knew who rang it. Each morning before sunrise, the bell would sound pure and steady, awakening the whole temple in silence. In life, there are sounds whose origins we cannot trace, like that bell, or the faint inner voice that calls from within each of us. Sometimes we search for the someone who made that sound, yet the more we search, the further we drift away. Just like in life, we keep looking for external reasons behind our feelings, Who made me sad? What caused my anger? Why can't I find peace? But the more we look for the one who struck the bell, the more we lose touch with the one who listens. The Buddha taught, when the mind is still, even the wind becomes the Dharma sound. When the heart is calm, there is no separation between striker and listener. Every sound becomes a bell of awakening. And so the story of the bell that rings without a hand is an invitation to listen, not with your ears, but with your heart. That temple had a tradition stretching back many years. At dawn each day, the temple bell would sound 3 times, echoing through the forest, as if calling the mountains themselves to awaken. Its tone was deep and clear, carrying across the valleys until the whole world seemed to pause and listen. No one knew who struck it. The villagers only knew that rain or shine, the bell had never missed a single morning. The elders said it was rung by a silent monk who had vowed to spend his life awakening others. Others claimed it was the spirit of a past abbot who had passed away in meditation, but whose compassion still returned each morning to remind the Sangha to practice. Whichever story was true, the mystery made the sound even more sacred, something both real and otherworldly. One day, a young monk arrived at the temple filled with doubt. He had heard the stories about the bell, but the more he heard, the less he believed. There must be someone ringing it, he thought. People just aren't paying attention. Determined to find the truth, he woke long before dawn, while the temple was still wrapped in fog. That night, the moon hung dim like smoke and mist covered the courtyard. The young monk sat beneath the veranda wrapped in his robe, his eyes fixed on the great bronze bell in the center of the courtyard, ancient, engraved with sutra, verses worn smooth by time. Everything was so still that he could hear the breeze slipping through the bamboo forest. Time passed. No one appeared. No sound. He began to feel foolish. Perhaps the bell wouldn't sound today. But then, from the distance, the wind rose. Currents of air swept through the valley, swirled into the courtyard, and brushed against the bell. A low, resonant tone rang out, not loud, but spreading through the air as if touching his very breath. Then came the second tone, then the third. 3 deep chimes, round, full, and still so pure that they sent shivers through him. There was no one standing there. Only the wind and the bell vibrating gently in the air. In that moment, he realized he was holding his breath, not from fear, but from awe. When the first light of dawn poured over the valley, the abbot appeared at the temple steps, walking slowly, eyes serene. The young monk ran to him, bowed deeply, and said breathlessly, "Master, I saw it. No one struck the bell, yet it still rang. Why?" The abbot smiled softly, his voice warm like spring wind. "No one struck it, my son. It was only the wind meeting your listening." The monk stood in silence, not fully understanding. The abbot continued, his gaze resting on the space where the bell still trembled in the morning air. The true bell is not out there, but within you. When your mind is still enough, every sound becomes the bell. But when your heart is filled with noise, even a real bell becomes nothing more than metal. Then he turned away, his slow footsteps blending with the lingering tone still floating through the mist. Each step seemed to echo the resonance, deep, steady, tranquil. The young monk stood there watching him fade into the fog, listening to the wind, the bell, and realizing he had just learned his first lesson in listening, that some sounds can only be heard when the heart is truly quiet. The bell without a hand is a metaphor for the silent mind. In Buddhism, the bell represents wisdom. The wind represents conditions or causes, and the listener represents awareness. When wisdom and conditions meet in stillness, the sound of awakening arises naturally. No one needs to strike it. No one needs to search. At that moment, subject and object, self and world become one. Life is the same. When we are angry, we say, "They hurt me." When we are sad, we say, "Life made me lonely." But the striking does not come from outside. It comes from our own reacting mind. Like the bell, only when the mind is still can we hear the true sound, uncolored by thought. In Zen, this is called turning the hearing inward, listening back into one's own nature, not listening to grasp or to judge, but simply to hear what is. Modern psychology calls this mindful listening. Studies show that when people practice listening without reaction, the brain's stress centers quiet down, while the regions for positive emotion grow more active. In other words, when the mind listens deeply, the body begins to heal. We have forgotten the art of listening. We listen to reply, not to understand. We listen to react, not to feel. And so the world around us is filled with bells, but we hear only noise. When the mind is calm, the sound of falling leaves becomes a teaching. When you are mindful, the sound of rain becomes a meditation chant. Because joy is not in the sound, it is in the listener. Science has shown that just 10 minutes of mindful listening each day, listening to wind, water, or even your own breath, can reduce stress hormones by up to 35% within a week. That means peace begins the moment you stop searching and start listening. Think of how many times you've heard a loved one speak without truly listening. How many times you've heard your own heart, but didn't pause to listen. The bell without a hand reminds us that every sound can be a call to awakening if we are still enough to hear it. When night falls, you can try a small meditation. Turn off the lights. Sit still or lie down. Don't try to stop your thoughts, just listen. Listen to the fan. Listen to the rain far away. Listen to your heartbeat. Listen to the silence between sounds. Soon you'll realize silence has its own voice. When you truly listen, there is no listener and no sound, only a gentle unity between the two. That is the moment when the body releases, the mind settles, and sleep comes like a cool breeze. You don't need to find peace. Peace appears when you stop looking for it, just like the morning bell which rings only when the wind and listening meet. The next morning, the young monk awoke without waiting for the bell. He stepped into the courtyard, hearing the wind through the bamboo, the birds singing the sound of his own footsteps touching the earth, and smiled. Every sound was a bell. Every moment was a Dharma teaching. Yet life is not only about listening, it is also about accepting what is imperfect. Like the potter Aaron, who once wanted to discard a vase when he saw a crack in it. But that very crack let the water seep through and nourish the flowers beside it. That story is called The Potter and the Broken Vase. For sometimes it is precisely our imperfections that open the way to wholeness. A spring morning. A soft mist lay across the dirt path leading to the old pottery workshop. From inside, the kiln hummed gently like a slow breath, while in the courtyard rows of freshly fired pots still glowed faintly with the red warmth of the earth. Amid that quiet glow, a potter sat still, gazing at the vessel in his hands. It was beautiful, yet a thin crack ran along its side. He almost threw it away, but his hands hesitated, because even with its flaw, the pot was still warm, still able to hold water, still reflecting the light of dawn. Have you ever looked at yourself and thought, if only I were a little better? If only I were perfect, without mistakes, without cracks. That thought, we've all had it. We believe happiness comes only when we or those we love or the life around us become perfect. But the Dharma teaches something gentler. When we learn to accept imperfection, we touch the wholeness of life itself. In this world, there is no pot without a crack, no human without a flaw. Yet there is something miraculous. If we see correctly, it is through those very cracks that the light enters. The story of the potter Aaron is a simple yet profound reminder of this truth. In a small village by the mountain, there lived a potter known for his skillful hands. He was born and raised among earth fire and the rhythmic song of the kiln. All his life, he treated pottery as a sacred ritual, each handful of clay held as though it carried the spirit of Mother Earth herself. Villagers often said that just by watching him spin the wheel following the form of the pot, taking shape under his fingers, one could tell this was not merely a craft. It was his way of living. One summer, Aaron decided to create a special pot, a gift for the village's largest annual festival. He selected the finest clay, filtered each grain of sand with care, and shaped every curve with the precision of a man who had spent his life listening to the breath of the earth. When the firing was done, the pot gleamed in sunlight. Its glaze shimmered like the surface of a clear lake. But when he carried it into the light, he saw it a thin crack running down the side, barely visible like a strand of hair. But to him, it was an unforgivable wound. His heart sank. Days and nights of effort ruined. He sighed and prepared to throw the pot behind the workshop. Just then, his old teacher, the one who had taught him pottery as a child, arrived for a visit. Seeing Aaron's troubled face, the teacher asked gently, "Why are you throwing it away?" Aaron bowed his head and murmured, "It's cracked, master. It's not perfect. A good craftsman shouldn't make such a mistake." The old teacher was silent for a moment, then smiled softly. His voice was calm as the breeze placed that pot beside the flower bed and filled it with water. Aaron was puzzled, but obeyed. He set the pot by the row of white daisies near the veranda, filled it with water, and left. The next morning as he walked by, he stopped in surprise. The water had leaked through the tiny crack, moistening the soil around it, and the flowers beside it, the ones that had looked wilted, were blooming brighter than ever. Their petals sparkled with dew, trembling gently under the morning sun. The old teacher stepped beside him, his eyes kind. "Do you see?" he said. "Through that crack, the water flows out to feed the flowers. When you learn to accept what is imperfect, it becomes part of something more beautiful. Aaron stood silently for a long time. Those words seeped into him like water into earth. He realized that for so long he had treated every flaw as an enemy, when in truth, it was the flaw that allowed life to flow through. From that day on, he never threw that pot away. He placed it by the veranda, where each morning when sunlight touched its cracked surface, he could see drops of water slowly feeding the flowers below. And he smiled the gentle smile of a man who had learned to love what was once not perfect. Later, every pot Aaron made, perfect or flawed, he kept. He no longer hid the cracks. He began sealing them with gold like the Japanese art of kintsugi, which preserves memories by mending broken pottery with beauty. He understood now true art isn't about erasing mistakes, but about seeing the beauty in what is incomplete. Just as in life, only by accepting our cracks can we truly know peace. The cracked pot of the potter is a mirror of our own human journey, both in practice and in daily life. We all have cracks, a painful memory, a mistake from the past, a wound not yet healed, or a part of ourselves we haven't forgiven. But instead of seeing the light that passes through them, we hide, cover, or try to discard them. The Buddha taught, all that is born is imperfect, yet within imperfection lies the nature of wholeness. The flaw does not destroy value, it reveals emptiness, the truth that nothing has a fixed, separate nature. A pot can hold water-feed flowers or simply be looked upon. A person can be wounded, and yet, through that wound, learn compassion. In Zen, there is a Japanese concept called wabi-sabi, the art of finding beauty in imperfection, impermanence, and simplicity. When our hearts stop chasing perfection, life begins to feel deeper, more real. Modern psychology calls this self-compassion. Researcher Kristen Neff found that those who treat themselves kindly when they fail recover faster, are happier, and have better mental health than perfectionists. It means that when we hold our cracks with mindfulness and kindness, they no longer control us. How many times in life have you punished yourself for a crack, a wrong word, a rushed decision, a broken relationship? We often believe we must be flawless to deserve love, but the Dharma teaches the opposite. It is when we accept our imperfection that we finally touch real love. A person who can admit mistakes, who smiles softly at their own faults, that person is not weak, but wise. A person who can say, "I have fallen too," is strong enough to lift others. If a crack makes you humble, if a mistake makes you kind, if the leaking water nourishes flowers, then it is no longer a flaw, it is a gift. Even a study from Yale University once showed, people form deeper connections when they share their weaknesses, not their perfection. Because honesty touches the heart faster than anything polished or idealized. So tonight, sit quietly and listen to yourself. Is there a part of you still hiding a crack? You're still trying to cover so others won't see. Try seeing it differently. Instead of trying to fix the crack, shine light into it. Let it be there gently as a part of who you are. No need to repair, only to understand. Breathe in and say to yourself, even with cracks, I am whole. Even with mistakes, I am learning to love. Gradually, your heart will soften. The pressure to be perfect will fade, and peace will arrive quietly, like water seeping from a cracked pot, silently nourishing the garden of your heart. Because happiness is not about being flawless. It is about seeing beauty right in the middle of imperfection. The next morning, Potter Aron returned to his kiln. He carefully placed the cracked pot by the veranda, where morning sunlight made every fracture glimmer like gold. He smiled, not wanting to fix, not wanting to hide, only feeling light inside. And behind the courtyard, a child sat by the pond crying as the clouds reflected in the water broke apart with the wind. A Zen master approached, looked at the child, and said softly, "The sky isn't broken, little one. It's only the water that moved." The next story is called The Child and the Broken Sky. A story about realizing that what seems lost is only an illusion, for the true nature of things has never been broken. That morning, a thin veil of mist lay over the lake, turning it into a clear mirror that reflected the slow drifting clouds above. The distant sound of a temple bell echoed softly, fading into the quiet air. By the lakeside sat a young boy, his clear eyes gazing at the still surface. He sat there in silence for a long time, until the wind rose, rippling the water, and the clouds reflected in the lake suddenly vanished. The boy began to cry. It was a small sound, but filled with sorrow, as if the sky within his heart had split in two. Have you ever felt something precious in your life suddenly disappear in an instant? A relationship, an emotion, or a belief you thought would last forever, gone like clouds dissolving in water. At such moments, our hearts react just like that boy's shocked hurt, convinced that the entire world has fallen apart. But has everything really been lost? Or is it only the image in our mind that has changed shape? In the winds of impermanence, everything seems to shatter. But Zen teaches nothing is ever truly lost. Only the water is moving. In the monastery garden, a lake rested quietly among tall pines. Every morning, white clouds floated slowly above and reflected on its surface, making it look like a second sky, clearer, calmer, almost closer to the realm of Zen than the real one. It was the boy's favorite place. After morning chanting, while the other novices cleaned the courtyard, he would sit by the water's edge, knees drawn up, gazing at the reflection of clouds and dreaming of the world beyond the mountains, a place he believed something sacred awaited him. That morning, the sky was clear, and a gentle breeze sent a fallen petal gliding over the surface. The boy smiled, watching the clouds in the water, as if looking into his own pure, untroubled soul. But then the wind changed direction. It grew stronger. The pine branches swayed, the clouds scattered, and the surface of the lake began to tremble. In an instant, the reflected sky shattered into moving patches of light and shadow. Startled, the boy leaned forward, trying to find his sky again in the rippling water. But no matter how hard he looked, the white clouds were gone. The lake he loved now looked dull and gray, filled only with waves. A wave of sadness rose in his chest, and he burst into tears. His crying echoed softly through the pine garden, clear, fragile, and heavy, as if he had lost something far deeper than the clouds themselves. The sound reached an old Zen master passing nearby. He stopped resting on his cane, his eyes kind yet deep, as if he had witnessed countless ripples like these before. He asked gently, "Why are you crying, child?" The boy wiped his tears and whispered, trembling, "The sky is gone, master. The clouds and the water, they've broken apart." The master sat beside him and followed the boy's gaze. He didn't comfort him right away. He simply waited in silence. The The wind still blew and the waves still moved. But when he finally spoke, his voice was calm and warm like the earth itself. "Sit still, child. Don't stir the water anymore." The boy looked surprised but obeyed. He sat upright, hands on his knees, and closed his eyes. Time passed. The wind softened. The small waves faded, and then the larger ones, until the surface of the lake became smooth again, clear as glass. When he opened his eyes, something miraculous appeared. The sky had returned to the water clearer than before. White clouds floated gently, distant mountains were perfectly reflected, and at the very center of it all, he saw his own face, small, calm, and at peace. The Zen master smiled and pointed to the lake. "See, the sky was never broken, only the water moved." The boy looked at him, then back at the water. A few tears still hung on his cheeks and dropped into the lake, forming small ripples. But this time, he didn't feel fear. He saw the sky still there, only shifting softly with his own breath. From that day on, he cried less and feared loss less. Whenever the wind rose, the clouds scattered, or the water trembled, he simply sat still and smiled, because he had understood the sky had never disappeared. It had only been waiting for him to be still enough to see it again within the mirror of his own heart. That simple story holds a profound Zen truth. The sky never breaks, only our mind is disturbed. The clouds that dissolve on the water's surface are like our illusions, things we cling to and mistake for real. The Buddha taught, "The mind is like water. When it is still, the moon reflects clearly. When it is disturbed, the moon becomes blurred. Everything we call loss is merely a reflection in the mind's water. Love, fame, success, failure, gain, loss, all are clouds passing over the lake. When we cling to those reflections, we suffer. When we see the stillness beneath them, we find peace." In modern psychology, this is called non-judgmental awareness, the ability to observe inner changes without identifying with them. Research from Harvard has shown that when people observe their emotions rather than react to them, activity in the brain regions linked to anxiety drops significantly within minutes. That is what meditation truly is, seeing the waves, but not forgetting the water. Noticing change, but remembering the unchanging nature beneath it. In daily life, we are all like that child by the lake. We love someone, then lose them. We build a dream, then watch it fall apart. We think everything is broken, but in truth, only the water of our heart is moving. The sky, the deep essence of life, remains whole, vast and bright. When we understand this, change no longer terrifies us. A relationship ending is not the end, it is transformation. A broken dream is not failure, it is the opening of another door. Science calls this resilience, the ability to rise again after loss. And the Buddha taught this thousands of years ago. All things are impermanent. When you see change as natural, you no longer suffer because of it. Instead of asking, "Why did I lose it?" ask, "What did it teach me?" For every loss refines the heart, making it clearer like the lake after the wind has passed. Tonight, if something still troubles your mind, a memory, a person, a fear, remember that morning by the lake. Breathe in deeply, exhale slowly, and whisper to yourself, "Nothing is truly lost. Only the water is moving. Emotions will rise, then fade. Thoughts will appear, then vanish. Work people and all you love will shift and transform. Let everything pass mindfully like clouds across the sky. You don't need to hold on nor to push away. Simply stay still, let the water settle, and let the heart grow clear. And in that stillness, you will see something miraculous. The sky was never really broken. The peace you seek is not out there. It lives in your ability to let go. Let your breath bring you back to this moment. Everything is exactly where it should be. And you, no matter how many clouds have passed, are still whole, still embraced by the vast sky of awareness. When the lake became calm, the child saw the entire sky, both in the water and within his own eyes. The Zen master stood gazing toward the horizon where dusk was falling and said, "True light does not come from outside, it lives in the heart. When the eyes no longer see, the heart still shines like a candle in the night." That line led to the next story, The Blind Monk and the Candle in the Night. A blind monk once lit a candle not to light his own way, but so that others would not stumble. And when the candle went out, he only smiled, for he knew that the real light was never in his eyes, but in a heart filled with gratitude. Behind the old temple, night descended gently over the mountainside, soft as silk. Moonlight glimmered on moss-covered stone steps, where the wind slipped through leaves like the silent whisper of the earth itself. In that stillness, a blind Zen master walked slowly along the narrow path leading down to the village. In his hand, he held a walking stick and a small candle flickering in the wind. The flame wavered but stayed lit, just bright enough for anyone walking toward him to see and step aside. A young man following behind asked curiously, "Master, you cannot see. Why do you carry a candle?" The Zen master smiled softly. "Because I do not want others to stumble in the dark." That answer rang through the night like a quiet sutra. In life, we often think of light as something to guide our own way. We seek knowledge, fame, belief, all to see more clearly, to go further. But sometimes it is precisely when we can no longer see that true light begins to arise. Have you ever asked yourself, if you lost your eyes, where would you find light? If one day everything you believe in vanished, would there still be a candle burning inside you? Zen teaches that true light is not found outside, but within a luminous mind. Just as the sun does not need to be seen to shine, compassion does not need to be recognized to radiate. That night, the wind rose. Clouds thick as smoke covered the mountain peak. The temple path wound through a dark forest of pines, steep, slippery, and shrouded in mist. Down in the small village, people huddled under their eaves, looking toward the distant temple lights, flickering like fireflies. They worried as they did every night, because the blind master always walked alone down the mountain to give his evening Dharma talk. Whenever someone asked him to rest, he only smiled. "I'm used to the dark. You only need to know the path, not see it." That evening, as the distant temple bell echoed through the valley, he left the small temple holding a lit candle. His frail frame, wrapped in brown robes fluttering in the wind, moved slowly but steadily. Behind him, a young disciple followed, torn between shielding the candle from the breeze and asking the question that weighed on his mind. At last, he spoke. "Master, you cannot see. Why still carry a candle?" The Zen master paused. The flame trembled between them in the mountain wind. He tilted his head slightly and said with a smile, "This candle is not to light my way, but to keep others from bumping into me." The disciple froze. In the quiet night, the words fell softly, but they reached deep into his heart. That small, fragile flame suddenly became a symbol of compassion, light not meant for oneself, but so that others might walk safely. They continued on. The wind grew stronger, carrying the scent of damp earth and dry leaves. A sudden gust blew, and the flame went out. Darkness wrapped around them like a thick cloak. Master the disciple cried. The candle went out. The master stood still for a moment, listening to the rhythm of the night. Then his voice, deep and calm, broke the silence. "It's all right. When I no longer see with my eyes, I see with my heart." The disciple said nothing. They kept walking, but the fear was gone. Each step seemed to touch stillness itself, and understanding that true light is not in the candle, but in the one who carries it. That night, the forest remained dark. The wind continued to blow, but inside the disciple's heart, another light had awakened, a light that would never go out. The story may seem like a poetic parable, but it carries a profound Zen truth. The blind master was not truly blind. He symbolized one who has let go of the limited vision of the ego. When the eyes no longer bind the mind, inner light appears. The Buddha taught, "The foolish look for faults in others, the wise look for faults in themselves." The light of the wise is the ability to see without eyes, to understand without explanation. The blind Zen master did not need light to walk. He walked with awareness. The candle he held symbolized compassion, a light not for himself, but to help others find their way. When the candle went out, he still smiled, because the real light was never in the flame outside, but in the heart that knows empathy, that listens, that loves. Modern psychology calls this emotional awareness, the ability to feel and understand without judgment. Studies show that when people cultivate compassion, the parts of the brain linked to fear and anxiety calm down. That is the essence of compassion meditation, the light of awareness illuminating the dark corners within us. Often we think we are walking in the light, yet remain blind, trapped in opinions and prejudice. We believe there is only one right path, one clear truth, and those who differ must be wrong. But the more we cling to our own light, the farther we drift from the true one. A person with sight, but no compassion, is still walking in darkness. A person without sight, but full of kindness, can illuminate the path for countless others. Zen reminds us true light does not lie in the eyes, but in a humble heart. When you open that heart and look at life with gratitude, even in the darkest night, there is light enough to walk. In daily life too, this truth applies. Sometimes people hurt us. Our first instinct is to close off, to turn away. But if we open even a little and see them with understanding, that light immediately begins to guide us both. The light of forgiveness, of empathy, it not only saves others, it saves us. Neuroscientists have found that gratitude changes brain activity and increases serotonin, the hormone that brings calm and happiness. So each moment of gratitude is a candle being lit within your own heart. When night falls, try this simple meditation. Sit quietly and close your eyes. Imagine a small candle burning in your chest. With each inhale, the flame grows brighter. With each exhale, your heart grows lighter. Let your mind settle. Let that inner light spread not only to yourself, but to those who once made you sad, those who once hurt you. No words of forgiveness are needed. Just let the light reach them silently, gently. Soon you'll realize, even with your eyes closed, you can still see. See with compassion, see with understanding. That is what Zen calls prajna wisdom, the seeing that is not bound by form, the natural radiance of the awakened mind. And within that awareness, you fall asleep peacefully, not because thought has stopped, but because your mind is no longer lost in the darkness of fear or emptiness. When the blind master returned to the temple, he placed the extinguished candle on the altar and gently wiped the dust from the Buddha statue. A young disciple nearby asked, "Master, I clean the statue every day, but dust still gathers. Is it because I don't clean carefully enough?" The master smiled. "If your heart still clings to dust, the statue will never shine." And so begins the next story, the dust on the altar. A simple yet profound teaching. Clean the heart before cleaning the statue. Only when we stop trying to fix the world do we truly touch peace within. That morning, a mountain breeze carried the faint scent of incense from the old temple. Sunlight streamed through wooden windows, scattering into golden dust over the stone floor. In the main hall, a young novice knelt with a cloth in hand, carefully wiping the Buddha statue. Each stroke was slow and deliberate, yet the more he wiped, the more dust he seemed to see, as if it could never truly be clean. Have you ever felt like that novice trying endlessly to make something right, only to find that no matter how hard you try, the dust remains? We clean the house, fix our words, try to make others understand us, try to make life better, clearer, but end up exhausted because perfection always seems just out of reach. Why is it that the harder we try to fix things, the more tired we become? And could it be that what needs cleaning isn't outside of us, but inside Zen teaches? If the mind is still dusty, no matter how long you polish the statue, it will never shine. Peace doesn't come from making the world perfect. It comes when we stop demanding perfection from it. In a small monastery nestled on the mountainside, there was a diligent young monk known for his discipline and devotion. Every morning, while dew still clung to the pine needles and the first light of dawn brushed the temple roof, he would rise early to sweep the courtyard, clean the floors, and finally polish the Buddha statue in the main hall. He loved cleanliness, believing that only when the statue was bright could the heart be clear. But one thing always troubled him. No matter how carefully he polished the statue, was never completely free of dust. The brighter the sunlight streaming through the window, the more the dust seemed to shimmer, mocking his patience. He wiped again and again until his shoulders ached and his mind grew irritated. He couldn't understand why the dust kept returning, as if the statue itself refused to be clean. One morning, while he was frowning in deep concentration, the abbot passed by. Seeing the young monk bent over with such effort, the teacher stopped and asked, "What are you doing, child?" The novice answered quickly with a hint of frustration, "Master, I'm cleaning the Buddha statue, but no matter how I wipe it, never becomes completely clean." The abbot looked at the statue, then at the boy's weary face. A gentle smile appeared on his lips. "If your heart is still covered with dust, you can polish the statue forever, and it will still be dull." The boy froze. A soft breeze drifted through, carrying the scent of burning incense. The dust was still there, but something inside him shifted. The master continued, his tone deep yet kind. when your mind insists that everything must be perfect, must be clean as you imagine it, then that very wanting is another layer of dust. The dust of ego. And no matter how bright the statue becomes, it will remain dim in your eyes. The young monk bowed his head and stayed silent for a long time. That morning, for the first time, he stopped rushing. He took a deep breath, held the cloth gently, and began wiping again. But now each movement followed his breath. Each trace of dust became a quiet reminder. From that day on, he continued to clean the statue every morning, but no longer out of obsession. He had learned that to make the statue shine, one must first polish the mind. When the heart is clear, dust is simply dust, no longer an enemy, but part of the path itself. That story carries a subtle lesson about mindfulness and the ego. The novice thought the dust was external, but in truth, it was within the dust, in the mind of one who wants to remove it. The Buddha taught, "When the mind is pure, the world is pure." It means that when perception is clear, everything around us becomes clear too. Here, dust represents attachment, our ideas of how things should be, to be better, to be loved, to be understood, to be recognized. But the more we try to make the world match our desires, the more we lose our inner peace. In Zen, there is a term called non-discriminating awareness. It doesn't mean having no thoughts. It means seeing thoughts like passing clouds without clinging to them. When the mind no longer insists on fixing everything, naturally returns to its original stillness and clarity. Modern psychology teaches something similar. Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, who introduced mindfulness to Western medicine, once said, "Mindfulness is not about controlling your thoughts, but about sitting still in the middle of the stream and seeing each wave clearly." In other words, you cannot stop dust from falling, but you can stop stirring up the wind in your heart. In daily life, we all have many statues to polish: our relationships, our work, our unfinished memories. We keep trying to tidy them, correct them, explain ourselves, prove our worth. Yet the more we try, the more dust we seem to see. It's not that the world is too dirty. It's that our hearts are not yet still. Whenever the mind wants something different from the present moment, we lose the peace that is already here. Dust doesn't dull the statue. Our perception does. Ask yourself, when you want others to change, aren't you the one who feels tired? When you insist that things must be right, isn't your mind more restless? Letting go of the urge to fix or improve is the first step toward tranquility. Just like the novice, only when he stopped wanting the statue to shine did his hands finally touch true brightness. A Stanford University study once showed that people who practice mindful meditation just 10 minutes a day experience a 40% reduction in stress and a significant increase in concentration. This proves that peace does not come from what we do, but from being fully present in what we do. Before sleeping tonight, reflect on your day, not to judge yourself, but to gently wipe the dust from your heart. You don't need willpower. You only need awareness. Close your eyes. Inhale, feel the breath touch your chest. Exhale, release thoughts of who was right or wrong, what's unfinished, or what didn't go as planned. All of it is just dust. Imagine you are polishing a Buddha statue inside your heart. Each breath is one gentle stroke. No hurry, no goal. Just see and smile. Then you'll realize the statue was never truly dull. It was only your gaze that was clouded by illusion. Sleep will come naturally, not because everything is done, but because the mind has stopped trying to make it better. Your breath will flow freely, your body will soften, and a simple peace will spread through your chest, like dust settling, revealing the light beneath. The next morning, when sunlight touched the Buddha statue, the novice wiped it again, but this time his face was calm. He saw the dust, but no longer minded it, because he knew dust may fall, but the statue still shines. The abbot stepped beside him and looked out the window. Outside, a young bamboo shoot was growing through a rock slowly, patiently. He said, "See, my child, it doesn't break the stone, it simply grows through it." And that leads to the next story, the bamboo that grew through stone. A lesson about the power of letting go, that we do not need to fight life to move forward. We only need to pass through it with patience and stillness. On the slope behind the ancient temple stood a large rock split in half by time. From the narrow crack between the stones, a young bamboo sprout rose upward, delicate, yet unwavering. When the wind passed, its leaves trembled gently, producing a sound like a temple bell, ringing softly in meditation hall. The abbot walked by and paused to look. Next to him, a young disciple asked curiously, "Master, how can a bamboo shoot grow through such hard rock?" The teacher smiled. "It doesn't break the rock," he said quietly. "It simply passes through." In life, there are moments when you feel trapped between two cliffs. One side is adversity, the other, the limits of your own self. You try to rise above, but the harder you push, the more exhausted you feel. You want to change your circumstances to break free, but every effort seems useless. Then a question arises within. Is happiness reserved only for the strong, those who can shatter all barriers? Or does it come when we learn to move through instead of fighting against? Zen teaches that the power of letting go does not lie in breaking, but in passing through without being hurt. Just like the bamboo that grows through stone, not by force, but through patience and softness. Early in the morning, fog covered the valley, thin as a white scarf draped across the mountain. Along the winding dirt path leading to the monastery, the sound of 2 pairs of footsteps echoed gently in the quiet air. The old Zen master walked ahead, slow, steady, serene. Behind him, a young disciple followed carefully, carrying a woven basket for gathering herbs. The wind swept through the forest, carrying the scent of damp grass and the calls of early birds, as if the world itself was waking from a long meditation. When they reached a cliff, the disciple suddenly stopped. Between the cracks of a gray rock, a tender bamboo shoot was sprouting green, fragile, trembling in the mist, yet standing tall. His eyes widened in wonder. "Master, how can such a frail sprout pierce through solid stone?" The Zen master stopped, looked quietly at the spot, and after a moment asked softly, "Do you see it using strength?" The disciple thought for a while and shook his head. "No, master. Do you see it rushing?" "No." The master smiled, his gaze gentle like morning light melting the mist. "Exactly. It doesn't need to break anything. It simply passes through bit by bit, moment by moment." The disciple looked again at the small sprout. The breeze swayed it lightly, its tiny body quivering as if breathing. The master bent down and tapped gently on the stone. A dry, sharp sound echoed. Then he said, The rock believes itself strong, but time always favors the soft. The hard may erode, while the soft, if patient, will pass through everything. The teacher's words drifted into the air, merging with the sound of wind through the forest. The disciple stayed silent, feeling something stir deeply within. He realized the master was not only talking about the bamboo, but about his own path of practice, where impatience, the desire to advance quickly to achieve something, had made his heart as rigid as stone. On the way back, the phrase "it simply passes through" kept echoing in his mind. The next morning, when he walked up the same hill, sunlight filtered through the treetops, bathing the little bamboo in a pure glowing green. It was still there, quiet, unhurried, unpretending, growing steadily between rocks. At that moment he smiled, because he understood that in both life and the path of awakening, some things don't need to be conquered, they only need to be patiently passed through. Like that bamboo sprout, soft yet strong, silent yet profound. In Zen, the image of bamboo growing through stone is not just a natural phenomenon, it is a symbol of patience and the wisdom of letting go. The passing through that the master spoke of is the state of egolessness, where one no longer needs to prove, to resist, or to hold on. The Buddha taught, "The soft overcomes the hard. The weak overcomes the strong." This is not passivity, but the wisdom of understanding natural law. In life, we often believe strength lies in action, in fighting, resisting, and striving. But Zen reveals a deeper truth. Real strength lies in stillness, amid change, and flexibility, under pressure, in softness, amid adversity. When the mind is at peace, you are no longer swept away by life's current. When the mind lets go, you no longer need to win or lose. That is the energy of bamboo through stone, slow, silent, yet unstoppable. Modern psychology calls this resilience, the inner ability to recover. Research shows that people with flexible, adaptive minds are happier and more successful in the long run than those who are rigid. Because they do not try to control life, they move with it. We often want life to follow our expectations, a smooth career, a lasting love, perfect health. But life is never that complete. The more we resist, the more we suffer. The tighter we cling, the more we lose. Look closely. Water cuts through rock not because it's strong, but because it's patient. Bamboo bends in storms, not because it's weak, but because it knows how to yield. Those who live with the spirit of Zen know when to be soft, when to step back, not out of fear, but out of understanding. A broken relationship is not a failure. It's a season of falling leaves making space for new growth. A failed plan is not an ending, it's a lesson for the next beginning. When we learn to let go, every pressure in life becomes material for our growth. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means releasing the struggle against what is. A Yale University study found that people who practice positive reappraisal, seeing adversity as opportunity, have better immune function and deeper sleep. This aligns perfectly with what the Buddha taught over 2,000 years ago. It's not the world that makes you suffer, but how you see the world. Before sleeping, take a few minutes to sit quietly and feel your breath. If something today has made you tired, if someone hurt you, or something didn't go as planned, don't push it away. Just sit with it. Breathe gently. Breathe in, whisper to yourself, I allow everything to be as it is. Breathe out and smile. I release the urge to change it. Like the bamboo, you don't need to break anything. Just keep growing silently, slowly, sincerely. One day you'll realize you've passed through the rock not by force, but by the stillness of your heart. Sleep comes naturally when you stop struggling. When both body and mind understand there's nothing left to resist. Then each breath feels like a cool mountain breeze, light, clear, and calm. The next morning, sunlight bathed the bamboo grove in gold. Dewdrops sparkled like tiny gems at the tips of leaves. A young monk stood watching and suddenly asked Master, "What is happiness?" The master pointed to a falling dewdrop and said softly, "It is when you no longer try to hold it." That sentence led to the next story, the dewdrop on the bamboo leaf. A lesson as gentle as mist. All joys are fleeting, and that is what makes them beautiful. Only when we cherish each moment can we truly touch the peace within. At the mountaintop, while the air was still misty with dawn, the bamboo garden in front of the Zen monastery shimmered as though covered with a thin layer of crystal. Dewdrops clung to the tips of the leaves, glittering in the morning light. Each tiny drop reflected the entire sky, yet with just a soft breeze it would fall, dissolve, and disappear quietly, as if it had never existed. A young monk stood watching, and a question arose in his heart. He put his palms together and called to the master, sweeping leaves under the temple veranda. "Master, what is happiness?" The master paused, looked up at a droplet sliding down a bamboo leaf, and smiled gently. "It is when you no longer try to hold it. Have you ever wished a moment would never end? A peaceful morning, a loved one's smile, or a feeling of happiness so pure it made your heart tremble. But no matter how much we wish it, every moment fades like the dew falling from the leaf's tip. We often believe happiness is something to hold tightly. We try to grasp joy, cling to someone, or hold on to something that once gave us peace. And when it leaves, we suffer. The paradox is, this happiness cannot exist when we try to cling to it, because that very grasping turns joy into fear, the fear of losing it. In Zen, there is a simple yet profound teaching. All joy is temporary, and that is why it is beautiful. If life never changed, how could we ever learn to cherish it? If the dewdrop never fell, how could the sun rise in its full brilliance? Sometimes what makes a moment precious is not its length, but its brevity. And on a morning like that, amid the silent bamboo grove, a small story unfolded, one in which everyone can find a reflection of themselves. That morning, the monastery was still wrapped in a blanket of white mist. The ground was damp with dew, and the bamboo leaves swayed gently in the cool breeze, whispering to the mountains. Birds sang here and there, their voices blending softly with the rustling of leaves, a melody so subtle that only a truly still heart could hear it fully. A young novice walked into the garden. He had joined the temple not long ago, still carrying vague worries about the past, the future, and his own uncertain path. He stopped by the grass where dewdrops gathered on the leaf tips, sparkling beneath the sunrise. The sight was so beautiful that his heart suddenly quieted. All his thoughts dissolved, leaving only the pure stillness of morning. Then a light breeze blew. The dewdrops trembled, fell, and vanished into the moist earth. The moment was so brief he could hardly breathe. A faint sadness arose, fragile yet clear. He looked at the empty leaf and thought, "Why does beauty fade so quickly? Wouldn't it be better if the dew could stay a little longer?" The question lingered in his mind like an unfinished note. Finally, he went to find his teacher, the old Zen master who swept leaves each morning under the veranda. The master stood there, holding a bamboo broom, each motion gentle, as if conversing with the earth. The novice bowed and asked softly, "Master, what is happiness? Why do beautiful things always fade so soon?" The master paused and leaned the broom against the post. He didn't answer right away. His eyes were calm and kind, filled with depth. After a moment, he pointed toward a bamboo stalk in front of the temple, where a single dewdrop still trembled in the light. "Do you see that drop of dew?" The novice nodded, eyes fixed on the clear, crystal-like drop. The master smiled. "Happiness is when you no longer try to hold it." As his words faded, a soft breeze passed. The drop of dew fell scattering into countless glittering specks that shimmered briefly in the new sunlight before disappearing without a trace. The novice watched, and strangely, a feeling both sad and serene arose within, as if he had just understood something beyond words. The master looked at him and continued, voice deep yet gentle. "If you try to hold the dew, you will only make it shatter. But if you simply observe and let it be, you will see its full beauty. Everything in life is the same. When you release the need to possess happiness, comes naturally." The novice said nothing. The question in his mind dissolved, leaving behind only stillness, like the mist melting away. The wind stirred again, making the bamboo sway. Sunlight spread across the valley, and the sky seemed brighter not only above, but also within the young monk's heart. In the Buddha's teachings, all things are impermanent. Everything we see, love, and hold is constantly changing. They do not vanish to make us suffer, but to teach us the wisdom of letting go. A dewdrop is beautiful because we know it will soon fade. A flower is fragrant because we understand it will wither tomorrow. Love is profound because we know that every meeting will one day end. Impermanence is not a warning, it is a gift, because only through impermanence do we learn to treasure the present moment. In psychology, this is called temporal awareness, the recognition of transience that allows us to feel happiness more deeply, because we realize the moment we are living is unique. The more we try to control, the less we can truly feel. The more we try to keep, the further we drift from life itself. Zen doesn't teach us to grasp, it teaches us to be fully present. Not to force, not to resist, not to cling. A mindful person can watch the dew fall and still smile, for they understand that even in disappearance, there is beauty. In life, our suffering doesn't come from losing things, but from refusing to accept that everything must one day pass. We want our loved ones never to change. We want joy to last forever. We want youth to remain. But life does not obey such wishes, and the moment we begin to hold, we begin to suffer. The Buddha said, "What is born will die. What has form will fade." Once we understand this, the heart becomes lighter. Because we no longer live to keep, we live to see the beauty of today while it's still here, to see the eyes of those we love before they close, to see the smile, the voice, the breath, and to feel grateful, because all of it is temporary. Modern science has also shown that people who practice mindfulness experience greater happiness even if they don't possess more than others. They are happy not because life is easy, but because they know how to savor each dewdrop of life before it fades. When the heart no longer fears loss, happiness arises naturally, because an empty heart has space to receive. Before going to sleep, try this simple practice. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and recall one small thing that made you smile today. Sunlight through the window, a word of thanks, or the warmth of your morning tea. Feel it. Be grateful for it. Then let it fade. Don't try to hold the image. Just smile and breathe. I know it was beautiful, and I let it go. In doing so, you teach your heart how to release without losing. Like the dew that dissolves into clouds, then becomes rain to nourish the earth. Nothing truly disappears, it only changes form. And when you understand that sleep will come as gently as bamboo leaves swaying in the wind, no dreams, no clinging, no fear, only peace within the flow. The next morning, when the mist lifted the stone path before the monastery sparkled under the sunlight, 2 monks were crossing the river in a small wooden boat. When they reached the other side, the younger monk carried the boat on his shoulder. The elder smiled and said, "The boat helped us cross the river, but it's not meant to be carried forever. From the falling dew to the boat set down, everything reminds us of one truth. Only by letting go do we become truly free. And only when the heart is empty can happiness find a place to enter." In the middle of the summer valley, a quiet river flowed around an old Zen monastery. In the morning, mist rose from the surface of the water, merging with the early fog, making the scenery seem to hover between presence and absence. From afar, the temple bell rang softly, dissolving into the wind. On the riverbank, 2 monks were preparing to cross, one older, calm and composed, the other younger, his eyes restless, as if he wished to cross not only the river, but also the heavy burdens within his own heart. Have you ever noticed that what once helped us can later become a burden, a relationship, an achievement, a belief, even a lesson? At first, they lift us, carry us through hardship, but then we cannot bring ourselves to let them go. Like a mountain climber who carries his ladder even after reaching the peak, what once helped him rise now weighs him down. It is the same with spiritual practice. We study the Dharma to understand life, to illuminate the mind. But at some point, even the Dharma must be released. If we cannot let go, the mind becomes entangled. If the heart is not empty, light cannot enter. That morning, the 2 monks crossed the river together, and their brief exchange left behind a timeless lesson, not only for those who practice, but for anyone learning how to walk lightly through life. The river was clear as glass, reflecting the blue sky and drifting clouds. Its current flowed gently between reeds, so quiet that the sound of the old oar tapping against the boat could be heard clearly. On the small wooden boat, weathered by time, the two monks began their crossing. The boat was old, its planks worn and seeping water through tiny cracks, yet strong enough to carry them to the other shore. The young monk sat at the bow, holding the oar eyes fixed on the water. He rowed slowly, worry visible on his face. Finally, he spoke softly. "Master, I'm afraid the old boat might sink in the middle of the river." The elder monk sat behind him, calm and composed, his brown robe fluttering lightly in the breeze. He smiled and said, "If the boat sinks, we swim. If we can't swim, we float." The young monk frowned, still uneasy. "But what if we die?" The teacher replied, his voice gentle like the wind gliding over the water. "If we die, then we have already crossed." The answer left the young monk speechless. For a moment, the oar stopped mid-air, then resumed its rhythm. The river kept flowing, the sun slowly rose, and in that stillness, something inside him began to dissolve, perhaps fear, perhaps attachment. Soon the boat reached the opposite shore. They stepped onto land. The teacher laid the oar back in the boat, brushed his robe lightly, his face serene as though nothing required concern. But out of gratitude, the young monk bent down and lifted the boat onto his shoulder. The teacher looked at him and smiled. "What are you doing?" "The boat helped us cross the river, master." "I don't want to leave it behind." The teacher chuckled, his tone warm and kind. "The boat helped us cross, but it's not meant to be carried forever." The young monk stopped. Sweat rolled down his forehead. His shoulders ached under the weight. At that moment, he realized it wasn't the boat that was heavy, but his own unwillingness to let go. The master continued, his voice as slow and steady as the wind. "Once you've reached the shore, let go of both the boat and the river. What carried you here is not meant to be taken with you. If you keep holding on, you'll never go far." The young monk stood still, looking at the old boat. Sunlight fell on its surface, revealing cracks and marks of time. He bent down and gently placed it on the ground. The soft thud of wood touching earth echoed deeply inside his heart. The wind passed through the bamboo grove nearby, rustling the leaves as if in agreement. The disciple looked toward his master, who was already walking ahead on the dirt path, light, as if carrying nothing at all. The young monk smiled, feeling that he too had just set down an invisible boat. And for the first time, his steps felt truly light. In Zen, the river symbolizes life, the stream we must cross to reach the shore of awakening. The boat represents the Dharma, the teachings and practices that help us move through suffering, delusion, and attachment. But if after crossing, we still carry the boat, then even the Dharma becomes an obstacle. The Buddha taught, even the Dharma must be abandoned, let alone that which is not the Dharma. This doesn't mean rejecting the teachings, but not clinging to them. Like medicine, once the illness is cured, we stop taking it. If we continue, it turns into poison. In life, many people suffer not because they lack wisdom, but because they cling to it. They believe that only one path, one doctrine, one teacher, or one belief is absolutely right. That very attachment imprisons them, leaving no space for life to flow naturally. Letting go of the boat means releasing attachment to any form, even the sacred. Because truth doesn't reside in words, forms, or rituals, but in the quiet and awakened mind. Just as when you cross a bridge, you cannot carry it with you. The bridge exists to help you walk across, not to hold on to. The Dharma is the same. It helps us go beyond, not stay behind. If you look back, you'll see, how many times in life are we still carrying the boat? That boat might be an old relationship, someone who's gone, but whom we still hold in our hearts. It might be a past wound, one we keep replaying in our minds. Or it might be an old success, a glory we refuse to step out of. Those boats no longer carry us anywhere. They only tire us. True happiness doesn't come from holding more, but from knowing when to put things down. The more we let go, the lighter we become. And the lighter we are, the closer we are to freedom. Modern psychology calls this the release from attachment memory. The human brain tends to retain emotionally charged experiences, especially painful ones. When we don't let go, these memories repeat like a loop, creating heaviness and recreating suffering. But when we accept that it's over, the nervous system reduces its stress response and the mind begins to rest. It's like setting the boat back down. We don't lose it. We simply return it to the river so it can continue its purpose. The Dharma is not meant only to be understood, but to be lived. Not only spoken, but practiced. Letting go doesn't mean abandoning life. It means living without being bound by it. Each night before sleep, ask yourself, what am I still carrying today that I could have set down? Maybe it's an unpleasant conversation, a word left unsaid, a regret not yet released. Let them fall like a boat placed back on the riverbank. Take a deep breath. Exhale as if releasing a heavy weight from your heart. Feel your body growing lighter, like the river flowing without resistance, without clinging, simply moving in silence. Letting go doesn't require effort. Letting go is permission. Permission for things to return to where they belong. Permission for yourself to rest, to be at peace. When the heart releases, sleep comes naturally. Nothing to hold, nothing to defend. Only the breath, soft, steady, warm. Just like the river flowing, not asking why, simply moving, smiling in silence. The next morning, the mist lifted, and the river's surface was calm as a mirror. The young monk turned back and saw the old boat still there, floating gently on the water, peaceful. And he understood, what's been set down is never truly lost. It simply no longer belongs to us. As they walked, the master said, happiness isn't about having more, but about having less. When you let go, happiness finds you because your heart has space to receive. From the dewdrop falling from the bamboo leaf to the boat left by the river, all are whispers of the way. Every act of release is a step toward peace. And on that shore, there is no river, no boat, only an empty, radiant mind. When we look back at the journey of letting go, we realize happiness was never about what we gained, but about what we were brave enough to release. When we stop demanding, the heart expands. When we stop controlling, life begins to flow. And when we let go, even the simplest things, a breath, a ray of sunlight, a bird's song, become enough to make us smile. The Buddha said, "If you want to hold water in your hand, cup it gently. The tighter you grasp, the faster it slips away." Life is the same. Everything we cling to will eventually leave. Only by releasing can we truly touch the still nature of happiness. Happiness doesn't come from adding, but from subtracting less anger, less fear, less greed, less striving. Live less but deeper. Do less but with awareness. Speak fewer words, but love with a listening heart. If today you feel weary from trying too hard, allow yourself to stop. Let go like a falling leaf, like a river ceasing its ripples. For when you pause, life begins to breathe. When you let go, happiness will find its way to you. Thank you for sharing this journey with us, where every Zen story is not just to be heard, but to awaken the quiet within you. If these words have brought you a little peace, please support the Buddhism Seeds channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing, so that the light of the Dharma may reach more hearts. We'd also be deeply grateful if you leave a reflection below. Sometimes one small sharing becomes a seed of peace for someone who needs it. Now close your eyes, relax your shoulders, and let your mind rest. May you have a peaceful night and a deep sleep where only the breath remains, the silence breathes, and a gentle smile rests within your heart.